All right, all right. All right. Yeah, right now we're just Facebook and YouTube. Just let people get in here, and then we can get it going. Do you know what's crazy is I have not been there yet. I have not been there yet, man. We'll let everybody get in here. That's really. That's what I hear. That's what I hear, man. What up, Blake? Blake Lewis said, "What up, guys?" Yeah, yeah. Y'all probably can't see the chat in the middle, but on my screen I can see it. But if y'all pull up the stream, just know Facebook has like a 7 second delay. What up? Okay. Just let people get rolling in here, man, and we'll do our intros and stuff. What's up, everybody? What's up, Facebook? Make sure you're liking and sharing the stream, guys. Let's get this thing popping. Yeah. Right now we are live on Facebook on my page and on Average Dude Slow Pitch YouTube page. So make sure y'all go over to YouTube and you can't hear anybody else. Oh, you know what? I gotta add the audio thing. Hold on. 2 seconds, y'all. All right, can y'all say something?
Mic
Yep.
check 1 2 1 2.
I'm sure it's working out. Let's see. What's up, Sauce?
You hear him
Yeah,
now, guys? Everybody hear him?
we're good.
I think so. We'll see in a second. Problem is, we gotta wait for the Facebook delay now.
Yeah. That's the one thing. And what's crazy, man, is like you can't change that. That's just a permanent Facebook thing. He said we're
Yep,
good now.
Sauce said you're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Cool.
Hells yeah. Well, might as well get this rolling so the people that are in here aren't bored.
Yeah, let's go.
But all right, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in. Obviously, we're trying something a little new here, trying to bring some more kind of awareness to the slow pitch game. Me and Trey been talking, and kind of the goal we came up with on all this stuff is bring in some different personalities. So it's not just kind of all the same people you see on some of the different streams and things like that. So with that being said, we've got basically in here, we've got myself, obviously Drew Henderson. Hopefully, I mean, maybe some of you guys know who I am, some of you don't. Go by Hendo, run Average Dude Slow Pitch, pretty much on all the social medias, bring you bat reviews, all that kind of fun stuff. As far as my kind of softball playing experience, primarily played military ball up until about a year ago. Got lucky enough to play the New Mexico Challenge Cup at the C level, and basically that's where I really met Honeycutt, who's in here. He'll introduce himself in a minute, and then kind of since then things have kind of taken off. Pretty much moved from C all the way up to Double A this year. Well, Double A just by obviously the team I'm on type of thing. So it's been an interesting year, but military ball primarily with some civilian ball obviously mixed in, and then really just kind of running the softball channel. So that's pretty much where I'm at this point, and that's going to be the plan kind of going forward as well. So we've also got in here, like I mentioned, Ryan Honeycutt. So I'll let him kind of introduce himself, talk about kind of what he's got going on in the softball world, and then go from there.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Appreciate you guys for having me on. I know I've been excited about it since I heard about this thing. So you guys both do an awesome job at getting our sport up, man, and getting more eyeballs on what we're doing out here. So special thanks to you guys. As far as I go, last year I was on Roof X. We were a major team. Got into the conference in I don't know 2001, 2002. It's No, 2020. I'm sorry. With Extreme, played a couple years with Competitive Edge, and then this year with RoofX. Before that with Olmedo Heat. So been in the game about 7 or 8 years total, from league ball all the way up to here. And yeah, man, excited to be here. We got a lot of big things coming up, and I like where our game is at right now, and I think it's just going to keep on growing.
Sweet. Yep. And then also, depending if you how much of the Average Slow Pitch channel you've watched, you may or may not have seen Keith on a couple of actually quite a few now of the videos. But got my good buddy Keith Harding in here, and I'll let him introduce himself as well.
Yeah, so Keith, mostly military ball, a lot of military A. Played a lot of civilian C ball in Central Texas over the last few years, but yeah, I just moved to El Paso this year, so trying to work my way up.
Hell yeah. And then, with no further ado, the person that probably most of you already know, we got obviously Trey Crawford in here, runs Treyway Slays. I'll let him handle all his own introductions and explain a little bit of what he does with it.
Yeah, I mean, y'all know me. I'm Trey Slays. I do a lot of the conference streams when it comes to softball. Any softball in general, man. As long as there's cameras at the field, y'all want me to stream it. I try to do my best. I am a dad, so I still have priorities over softball. But it's been great, man. It's been great. I like doing it. I also still play myself, so hopefully make my way through the ranks here. But yeah, man, I'm excited for this podcast. I hope it can go a long way, especially during the off season, man, when everybody just wants to hear about softball and news, man. Hopefully we can bring them some breaking news and stuff like that, so it'd be nice.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and again, kind of the overall goal is just get different guests on here, not always just kind of players. Try to bring in maybe some conference coaches, different coaches at different levels, some fitness guys, bat companies, all that kind of different stuff on different episodes, just to kind of bring all the information that may not be common knowledge to everyone. Obviously, all different levels of players out there. Some of the big things, obviously, that kind of come up and all of us have been talking about is you've got guys who reach out to all of us and they ask kind of, hey, what's your off-season routine, or what do you do for BP, or how am I supposed to use my bats during the winter, and all that kind of stuff. And so having a platform like this gives us a way to kind of talk about some of that stuff, hopefully clip some of that information for you later so we can turn into some kind of like reels that you can go back and watch just the portions you care about. And then also gives you a chance to real time on the live, obviously post your questions in Facebook. We're tracking that, and YouTube, wherever you're watching from. And we'll do our best, obviously, to answer them while we're here on the live, and give the different guys their chance from their perspective to give you their take on whatever that particular question might be. And so kind of with that, just kind of mentioned it, something that I've talked to Honeycutt a lot about, but is basically off-season kind of prep. So what are you doing during the off-season to get ready for next year as far as fitness goes? And then when you're obviously taking your BP, kind of what's that BP look like? I know some guys go out there and they try to see how far they can hit the ball. That's probably not the approach you're probably going to get from Ryan here in a second, but we'll let Ryan start with that one, seeing as whatever he's been doing off-season prep has clearly been working, because he goes out each year and pretty much kills it at the conference level. So we'll let him talk about a little bit of what he does and then kind of move on to the other guys.
Yeah. For me, so I grew up, playing baseball, obviously, and doing that through college. So the things have transitioned. The weight program has transitioned so much from the time I was in college and pro ball till now, right? So back in the day, we pretty much lifted like football players, and a lot of times, especially in baseball, that can kind of be counterproductive to what you want to do. You want to build your explosiveness, you want to stay flexible. I'm not a huge guy. But it's more about technique. And I found out for me, if I get big and bulky, it kind of is counterproductive. So there's a few different trains of thoughts of what guys like to do in the off season. For me personally, a couple years ago, I got with Ryan Talon, with who Sendo's with now. Tyler Irvine actually got me put on with him, and he opened up a whole plethora of things that opened my eyes as far as the fitness goes. I mean, I got muscles are sore that I've never even realized I had. I mean, every exercise you do is involving your core. You're hammering your core, you're hammering your grip, you're hammering your forearms. So I'm a big believer in that type of stuff, doing the stuff that translates to the field. Because you can go out there and bench press 450 pounds, but it's not really going to correlate too much to what you're doing, what you're swinging, especially if you play a position. So this off season for me has been a little bit different. I got back into jiu-jitsu. I got back into grappling just because I felt like I wanted to use some more different muscles. I've been grinding at this softball thing for 4 or 5 years nonstop, right? So sometimes it's good to use different muscles. Growing up, I played football, I wrestled, I did some of that stuff in my younger years. So I just felt like, man, if you grind on the same muscles and you do the same swings and the same throws over and over and over, eventually stuff starts breaking down. So I want to kind of avoid that. I want to kind of clear my mind a little bit and challenge my body in just some different ways. So that's what I'm kind of doing now. Obviously, I stay with the weights. But yeah, as far as fitness, I mean, that's important. And I tell people that all the time, man, because if you want to get to the very top of the mountain there, the guys who are up there are doing the extra stuff. The guys like Tyler Irvine mentioned before, he went out and hired a personal trainer to get him to that next level. Those guys are working that hard. So the game is definitely changing. If you, as a lower level player, working your way up, want to catch those guys, those are some of the things that you have to do to get there. So yeah, man. I mean, it's not just about cranking weights. You gotta do all the little stuff too. So hope that answers your question, Hendo, on the weightlifting side of things. As far as off season goes.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in on that real quick before I let either Trey or Keith throw their take. But Ryan mentioned it. He mentioned Ryan Talon. Yeah, I actually, so exactly you mentioned, I reached out to Tyler Irvine this offseason, Honeycutt, and actually a couple other guys. And Ryan Talon's name came up probably 90% of the time from those guys. And I was like, well, if they all are saying he's pretty good, he's got to be pretty good. So sure enough, I hit him up. He called me like the same night. He was like, hey, if you got time to talk? And next thing you knew, we were on the phone for about 2 hours. And what sold me on Ryan Talon's kind of program was I'd been doing the standard. I've never been a big gym person. So I was like, cool, I'll do push pull legs and just lift some weights and we'll see what happens. It wasn't really working out, was getting some injuries here and there. And he basically told me, he's like, listen, he's like, we're not going to train to excel at the sport. We're going to train to basically excel at life, make sure your range of motion, mobility, all that stuff's good. He said, and I promise with all of that, you'll see increases. And I've only been with Ryan now for about a month, and I've already seen some pretty crazy increases in just bat speed, exit velos, things like that. So as Ryan mentioned, same thing, staying in the gym, but not just trying to see how much you can lift, but really focusing on kind of your mobility and whatnot, so that you can use the right muscles, obviously, obliques, all that kind of stuff. And as you're rotating around on that ball, you're able to get around and maximize your power, leg drive, all that kind of stuff. So but yeah, for you, Trey and Keith, how about you guys? Anything you guys do kind of off season wise, specifically for softball, like weights wise, or is it mostly just kind of BP and stuff?
Go ahead, Keith. I'll go after you.
Me personally, it's more so, it's still weights. I don't change up between the summer when I'm actually playing until after World and stuff like that. I just keep it the same, keep doing lifting weights, taking BP. Only difference, I don't play. Well, I try not to play as much in the winter because I hate being cold.
Yep.
Especially when you're standing around in the outfield just waiting for a ball to cut. It's cold. No.
Yep. How about you, Trey?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's kind of, the off season. It's getting a little colder here. Lights, it gets dark sooner, man. So it's really hard on the East Coast. Yep. But like for me, like eventually, like me and my daughter will start going to the cages. She's got work to put into this year. So I'll be able to do some tee work and stuff like that. But if I get a day where I'm off early or something, I get a guy or somebody to come out, and we'll go hit BP. I got a bunch of fields around me, so it's easy. But yeah, not too much like weightlifting and stuff. I am planning to get back in the gym, but right now it's just first my daughter, then me, and then just BPing really.
Cool. Yeah. So I think that pretty much takes us right into what everybody said they wanted to talk about, which was kind of approach at the plate, how you're handling your BP, and having kind of a plan as you go out there and show up versus just let's show up, take 100 swings and kind of head home. And so with that, I mean, I'll go back to Ryan first here and let him kind of talk through when he goes, basically, what is he working on? What's kind of his approach? How many different approaches do you have? All that kind of fun stuff. And what should guys be trying to accomplish when they're going to BP in order to obviously succeed once they reach kind of that tournament game time?
Yeah, man, we could fill 2 hours with this stuff, man. I'm a junkie when it comes to swinging the bat. I've been doing this since I was 4, so I love it, and I love talking to guys who know how to hit and picking their brains because everybody's a little bit different, right? So I'm a big tee work guy. I like doing the tee work. I like having a routine when it comes to hitting the ball. So for me, is I always start off with the tee. I take 20, 30 swings. I got a cage in my backyard, or I'll take it out to the field and kind of see some launch angle, that type of stuff. I always start backside, man. I think the worst thing you can do is step in there and just start yanking balls. For me, it throws off your timing. It gets you in a bad habit. So you always start backside. You always back the ball up, and you work like a sprinkler, right? So for me, I'm going to left field. I'm working line all the way down to pull side, and I'm always ending up in the middle. Another way that works for me is, especially if there's been a long break and you're trying to get your ass in shape, set up your tee and you play a game in your mind, right? So you set up your tee, you come up with a situation, nobody on, nobody out. What are you trying to do? You pepper that line drive over shortstop, and you run out of the box and you hit a double, right? And while you're catching your breath, you go back and you think about the next situation. Take a breather, you get back in there and you take another swing, and then you run down. And if it's a home run, you run it like a single. If it's a triple, you run it like a triple. So you get yourself in kind of game shape, because you can sit there and hit 60, 80 balls in a row, but that's not really relevant to what you're doing in the game. A lot of times, I didn't play as much outfield last year because we had a bunch of young killers out there, but a lot of times you'd be running in from the outfield and it's like you're leading off the inning and you're trying to gather yourself, catch your breath. So that kind of gets your mind right as to resetting and getting in there and doing that. So that's how I always start off in terms of BP. I always work the backside. I always work the backside hole first and then go gap to gap, But it also depends a lot on what tournament you got going up, right? So if we got the Smoky coming up, I might hit backside to get my timing in, but I ain't trying to hit backside.
Swing away, man.
No, hell no. Yeah, I'm trying to go dead central.
Rip it and rip it.
Yeah, because you can work yourself out of it. So many guys, you work on playing the game, and you're playing on 300s. And if you keep that same approach, for me, I can't flip that switch as good, right? So I'm either kind of one mode or the other, right? So when it gets closer to Smoky Major, your mentality definitely changes with that, But I tell guys all the time, man, work on the shit you're going to do, right? So, so many guys, I talk to them and they ask me about hitting. I tell them what it is, and they're like, really? That's it? I'm like, yeah, man, I don't need 10 different swings. I need 2 or 3 that work really good. It's like Bruce Lee said, man. I'm afraid of the guy that, that's done the same kick 10,000 times as opposed to a guy that knows 10,000 different kicks, right? So you want to groove that muscle memory over and over and over. You want to have a swing where the wind, you're playing in Florida and the wind's blowing in your face 60 miles an hour. You want to have a go-to swing for that, right? You want to have a go-to swing where it's gap to gap and you're letting it eat. You want to have that. If you have those 2 swings, that's what you're going to use 90% of the time. If in league ball, if you want to dick around and hit some caca shots over third base or first base, you can do that. But for me, that's a waste of time if I can just really hone in on the 2 swings that I'm going to use in the game. And then you just use that in the game and your law of averages take care of the rest. So I keep it relatively simple. I stay in the big part of the field always. And that kind of puts me on time. I'm going to take my chances there. So, that's what I do, but everybody's different.
Yeah. And just to touch base off, you saying I always start backside, just to put that in perspective, guys, for a lot of these guys that, look up to conference dudes. I actually had the opportunity to swing with Scott Hartling. He was in my neck of the woods one random weekend. He was on vacation. He's like, hey man, I want to hit. And me and him went out to a field, and that's literally all he did his entire swing. And Scott's a big dude, man. He can hit that ball pretty far, but the entire 2 rounds of BP, he hit nothing but backside shots the entire round. And he might have, the last couple balls, he might have just, put some into him just to show off. But other than that, he was going backside the entire round of BP. So just to put that in people's perspective about, man, why do I always need to go backside? Just trust the process, man.
How about you, Keith? I know I see what you do when we're making videos, but anything you do outside of when we're making videos?
Outside of making videos, I'm hitting off the tee. I have a little field. It's about 2 minutes from my house. My first probably 10, 15 swings, I do try to go middle just to, 1, get loose, 2, kind of get my timing down. And then my biggest focus when hitting off the tee is just getting my hands extended because I have a really bad habit of like swinging late and then fucking T-Rex arming it. It kind of works out because I'm a little bit strong, so I can force them out here and there. But it's a lot easier if I get my hands out. So I mean, just finding something to focus on. Actually dialing that in before just letting it fly and shit. So
Yeah, and not to make this topic take too long, but just kind of touching on a little bit what everybody talked about. But yeah, so T-work is again. So I know everyone obviously sees the videos we make, things like that. So typically by the time we're shooting those videos, we, assuming we had time that day, have done the normal kind of BP routine. So setting up the tee. I'm the same way as Keith though. I do start middle as well, just to kind of get loose, to make sure timing's kind of everything squared up, and then I'll switch to kind of the right center backside gap. And then I don't even worry about the left side until it's time for the videos, and that's mostly because of just the way the cameras are currently set up, things like that. But big thing too is if you are going to do tee work, it's not. I mean, a lot of people probably have played baseball before. Ryan mentioned it. It's not the same when you set up your tee as when you're playing baseball, right? You're not setting this thing up at like waist level and then moving your feet all around. And so I see guys who will be like, cool, I'm going to go backside. And they'll turn their body to hit backside off the tee. And then they want to pull, so they turn their body to pull. So there's some good videos online about on YouTube that you can easily look up on like slow pitch softball tee work. But basically, you want that thing obviously up higher, because think about the arc of where that pitch is coming in. And then if you're pulling the ball, move that tee out in front of you, right? So you're catching out in front. When you're going middle, you're backing up a little bit backside, so on and so forth. So just kind of keep that stuff in mind as well. If you're either new to tee work or really just haven't done it a whole lot for slow pitch purposes, there is some differences there that I think I've seen people kind of mess that kind of stuff up as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then, yeah, again, BP piece, just make sure you're focusing on picking a couple swings. Ryan mentioned it, 2 or 3. For me, it's basically 3s what I feel like I'm at. Right center gap, I'm pretty comfortable with, and then more of just the pull hard, left center, left line, something like that. And then if I ever feel like my timing's a little bit off or whatnot, I'm usually pretty honed into kind of wherever that hole between, whether it's the shortstop and pitcher or pitcher and second, based on where the 5-man's at, is kind of the last spot for me, because I find that's the easiest way to time back up if you're ever feeling a little off, or if like my back's not feeling great and I don't want to rotate on a ball. Easy to kind of extend out and go to that area. So kind of gets similar to what Ryan's talking about.
A lot of times too, like you start playing a lot of teams. So when you get up in the conference and things like that, you start facing the same pitchers a lot. You start facing the same teams a lot. I felt like every game we played Resmondo this year, right? So I had a pretty good idea, and they had a pretty good idea of where I'm trying to hit the ball too. I mean, they would put 4 guys on the left side of the infield because they know nobody on, nobody out, especially in ASA, things like that. That's where I'm going, right? Now, there's 2 trains of thoughts, right? If you have that tool in your tool belt to hit it through a hole, do that, right? I'm a pretty stubborn guy, right? They can put 10 guys over there, and I'm still like, hey, stop it. I'm still going there. I'm still doing what I want to do because these coaches are trying to go off your tendencies, right? They're trying to make you use your 5th or best swing. I'd rather use my best swing all the time and let them figure it out. If they want to catch a 108-mile-an-hour piss rod at their chin, I'll tip my cap to them, right? So know what you do well, and don't let these guys dictate the game for you. You're in control in that box. They still got to catch it, right? If you have a good bat speed like everybody on here does, make them get you out. Don't bow down to them. It's like, hit the ball hard, and it's like you got a glove. I'm going to take my chances. You're going to bobble it, or it's going to go through you. So I feel like so many times people look at the defense and they don't trust what they got. They're like, well, there's a huge hole over there. I'm going to try to baby one through there and take a 60% swing. If you take a 60% swing, you got to be perfect, right? Whereas if you're taking 100% swing and you're putting RPMs on that ball, you can hit it right at somebody, and it's got enough juice to get by them or make them bobble it. So, man, know what you do well and go hard at it every time. That's my opinion on it. So,
yeah, no, completely agree. And then just to touch on this real quick, because I know this has been asked a lot on a lot of the YouTube videos lately, since we're talking about BP, but obviously it's the winter months, so everyone lives somewhere different. Me, Honey, and then Keith, even down here in the South, we've been a little lucky. I mean, it hasn't been super, super cold. So like last night, we went out and hit took a few swings at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and it was still about 50, 55 degrees. I know obviously not everyone's that fortunate, but just be smart with your bats as well. I get lots of guys, the older a bat, and then like a week or two later, or not a week or two, probably a month later, they're like, hey, I blew up my bat already. I'm like, what bat did you have? They tell me what it is. And so I've started asking the questions like, hey, what temperature are you swinging and what balls are you using, all that kind of stuff. And so big things to remember is Yeah, the temperature outside matters, but what matters way more is going to be where you're storing those balls and where you're storing the bats. So if you want to go BP when it's 40 degrees out, probably still not the greatest idea to swing Pro M's, but even if you're going to, make sure those Pro M's have been in your house, make sure the bat has been in your house, temperature controlled. And then you go out there and hit, go out there, hit right away, and kind of get done with it. Don't let the bat sit out there and let the barrel get real cold, all that kind of stuff. And so just be careful while doing the tee work. If you're somebody like me who I was swinging the D-Rini Culture last year, I'm still swinging it now. I'm going to swing it this weekend when me and Honeycutt go to North versus South. But when I go out on BP, I actually ended up picking up a D-Marini, not a lie, the M load. And it's simply because same barrel length, but that tech is meant more for cold weather than like the APC tech. So if you've got something that's not really meant to be swung in the cold, so those lower compression type bats, I would recommend finding you something for your BP, even if it's just a D-Marini corn dog. Again, as we're talking about working on approach, you don't need the hottest bat around, right? You just need something that's going to work, that you can work on that right center gap, left center gap, tee work, whatever it might be. And so don't go out there, bring stadium balls out there, swinging your Louisville Sluggers, your tantrums, whatever it might be, and just hit the ball, try to hit the ball as far as you can in 30-degree weather and wonder why your bat broke. And so just keep that in mind. Just because, again, I mentioned almost every video we do, the way we BP the bats in the video is not the way I would break in any bat. We do it so you can see how 52s perform, so you can see how Pro M's perform. But 90% of these bats, I'm not swinging Pro M's in BP, especially on cold weather. And so just protect your bats, break them in the right way, and then honestly, if it's me, pick up something that's more meant for kind of the winter for when you're BPing and working on kind of that approach, and then take out your gamer to those tournaments, whatever it might be cold, but now you're only putting a few swings on it versus trying to put 100, 150 BP swings with hard game type balls.
I think that's another thing is like when these guys go, they buy a new bat and they go out to BP, man, it's just like, all right, I'm about to hit 50 balls with a brand new bat. I'm not really
50 game balls at that.
Yeah, even if that or like me, man, I don't have all the same balls. Like all of mine are different, but I might take 2 or 3 cuts just to get the feel of the bat, and then I'm grabbing a bat that I BP with just so I can get the work in. Because you see a lot of these guys go out there with a brand new bat. I used to do it when I first got in to softball. Is I would go out there and I'll just keep hitting with that bat, keep hitting, and then when I found out what's a compression test, what does that mean? Oh, they gotta test the bats. Oh snap! Okay. Oh, your bat failed. You can't use it. Oh crap! Now what am I going to use? So I think that's another big thing is guys just go out there with a brand new bat and just start cutting it, and especially not everybody goes to tournaments that test, but for the guys that do, I think that's a big key is, hey man, don't take 100 million cuts with the bat. But granted, the bats now are a little bit more durable, but just depends.
Yeah, man. I remember a few years ago. I mean, you couldn't put any BP swings on before they went to that 240 mark. Now it's like, man, I feel like I never break a bat, and you guys, a little bit more cut the ball, and if you're a guy who doesn't cut the ball, like I don't cut the ball as much, right? I still have a lot of baseball in my swing. You're hitting it in the mouth a bunch, squaring it up, you're gonna break some bats, so so don't be surprised, man. It's gonna pop.
Yeah, and it's the last piece of that one too. Is I know guys always talk about, because I mentioned, hey, you should swing 52s on certain bats. Again, not everyone can afford to buy. I get it, softballs are expensive, but as you start kind of building that BP collection, if it's me again, if I only could own one type of ball, it would be all 52s at that point, something soft, because again, we're not sitting out there in BP trying to see how far we can hit the ball or anything like that. And so,
Right.
As you get the chance to start picking up more and more BP balls, I would try to grab those. Again, if you can't, that's fine. Maybe other companies have it too. I know if you go to Louisville Sluggers, so Slugger Slow Pitch's website, at the very bottom, they actually have a link that talks about how to break their bats in, so how to probably break it in. Honestly, that criteria is just what I would use for just about every bat company. Just go out there, follow that one. Again, if you don't have 52s, it's fine. They talk about taking like 50% swings for a little while, then 75% swings, kind of opening up the fibers, opening up the bat, all that kind of stuff, and then kind of unleashing and kind of swinging away for a little while. And even that'll protect your bats more than just, again, going out there and seeing how hard you can swing from swing number one. So just keep that in mind. I tell Keith the same thing every time he comes out and hits with us. He's got to do the same thing. But yeah, I mean, if you want to break your bats and buy more, I'll help you out. Got plenty of discount codes for you to get you cheaper bats. But if you're like me, it sucks to have to buy a bat a whole bunch if you don't need to. So just take care of your bats.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to let the big dogs talk, all right?
Guys,
listen, Keith, we're talking about BP. He doesn't take BP, Adrian. All right,
I don't.
Unless he's on video.
I show up and send it.
Man.
Cool. Yeah. So enough about kind of the prep and the BP portion. I know some things that have come up as well, especially knowing when people found out Ryan was going to be on here, is they wanted to kind of find out kind of what level did you find was like the biggest, most challenging kind of change? Like when you were playing, I don't know where you started at, but let's just assume you started somewhere around D ball. Like, did you hit one point where you went from like C to B? You're like, man, this is the most difficult. Then once you locked in at B, conference was pretty easy, or was it no kidding? By the time you got to conference, was that the hardest kind of the switch you made, or how did you find that kind of transition?
Yeah, started off in league, and you just kind of working your way up, but really a big eye opening was for me when we first went to Florida. So I went to Florida as an A team with Olmedo Heat. Shout out to Mark Bernius, Texas Hall of Famer, man, that guy's a legend. And he put a badass A team together, and I was on that team. The year before, we got second in B Worlds. But when I got a chance to go to Florida and really see how the wind messes with the ball, and depending on what field you're on, it could be a 5-6 game, or it can be a 36-30 game. I mean, it just depends, right? But also what people understand is like these guys who know how to pitch know how to throw their knuckleballs into what type of wind they're going up against and make them do different stuff. So around that time, when I started going to Florida, I started noticing a big difference with guys knowing how to pitch. They're not just throwing four-seam biscuits up there. They know how to try to get you out. And now, I mean, obviously, when you play against the Resmondos, the Junos, the Sunnies, all the really good AA teams, they all have pitchers, that have been around a long time and that know how to get you out. So they will throw you stuff early in games and let you eat a little bit. But when it's a big time situation, they remember how they got you out. It might be from a few tournaments ago, and they'll go back to that well and to see if you made an adjustment. So to me, that's the biggest thing, right? Is those guys know how to throw, they know how to get you out, and they put in the time to scout you and know where your weaknesses are. They're not just up there trying to throw a strike. And when you add that guys are athletic and they're playing further back, those holes shrink up a little bit, right? So you're not able to walk the box and poke a hole, man. You got to hit it through there because you got guys like Heath Barnes and guys that can just go out and cover some ground and you're out, So to me, I mean, obviously this level is the hardest there is, but that's the reason why, because you have good athletes, you have good pitchers that have been around the game a long time and they know how to get you out. So
Honeycutt, who's got your number on the mound so far?
Probably Mooch, man. I'm glad he was my teammate last year, so I didn't have to face him. But man, I'm still herky jerky. I fall for every one of his jukes, man.
That man has mastered movement on the mound, man. It is insane. I remember watching a video, man, when I first got into softball 5-6 years ago, of him mic'd up on the mound for USSSA, and this dude is just spinning around on his knees and just working, and he does it the entire game. I'm like, bro, what is your stamina, or what do you do at home to be able to pitch like that every game?
Yeah.
My favorite comment was
freak. I mean,
yeah.
The thing about him is like he's been around so long. He knows he's not afraid to throw balls, and that's the thing, because he knows he can throw a strike at any time. So he will nibble, throw you a cookie, let you get 3-2, and then throw you his pitch. Where it's like borderline ball, and you swing and get yourself out. So, man, I'm very lucky. I've got to play with him this past year. I learned a lot just watching the way he does his stuff. And that guy's an absolute legend, man. I love me some Mooch.
Yeah, I think it was my first conference event, which would have been Columbus. I think Mooch was up there pitching, and some lady from the stands, I remember she was like, someone forgot to tell him you're not supposed to take the entire bottle of Adderall at the same time. And he's sitting there, and I was like, that's exactly what Mooch reminds me of. It's like somebody who just took way too much Adderall and just hyped up. And I'm like, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, for a pitcher to have that kind of energy after being on the mound in that helmet with how hot it is, it's not something you see from a lot of the guys. Most of them take their helmets off and they're sitting there dying. Mooch is just full energy still. So definitely one of the more fun guys to watch play.
Mm-hmm. And the fact
he's up there firing up heaters in the dugout. I mean, he's just an animal, man. He's just an all-time legend.
And it's also the fact that he can just sit there and keep throwing strikes after moving, and he knows where he's at when he's around that mound. He knows exactly what he's about to do. I'm gonna throw this ball 20 feet in the air because I'm just trying to get you to look up, and then I'm gonna throw you a fast pitch right here to get you to swing. So It's, I mean, and there's a bunch of good pitchers at that level, man. It's insane.
Yeah, man. Mooch when he has his grenade thing where he's like, he's made. I'm like, how the hell do you hiss that loud, man? The whole field can hear it.
And that's another
And
thing.
that
Is
ball's
like
coming in there.
when we're
I mean-
and when we're watching, we're watching from a video, so we can't really hear all the sounds of the game. Like we can hear the screams and the boom, but you don't know what the pitcher's doing up there, man. He could be making weird sounds that we don't know about. So, and like you said, he's
Oh,
making
yeah.
a grenade thing. I'm
Mhm.
like, what? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, man. He pumps and goes, and then he goes, then he goes, throws it up there, and he's whistling the whole time it's coming in. And you're like, as a hitter, you're like, what the hell's going on,
It's
And then,
another
you get
distraction, man.
frustrated and you try to hit him and stuff. You try to go middle or whatever. And, like, he's usually got a dude right in his hip pocket that's going to, make a play on you. So, man, Mooch is an all-time great. I mean, he no-hit Cheap Suits this year. Cheap Suits ain't no slouch. They got some
Yeah.
damn good players over there. He no-hit them, perfect game them in Florida. Like, I that's never been done that I know of. Like, that's crazy, But that's the type of dude that you only get, that only comes around once in so long. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, guys like that, like you just kind of sit back, watch, and enjoy the show, man, because they're gonna bring it every time they go out there and pitch. So I love me some Mooch, man. But he's really good. Bill Pinkham's really good. The thing about Pinkham is like he's a good athlete out there, so he'll throw it, and he's like he backpedals so fast, man. Those little feet are just motoring, and you try to hit middle on him, and he's like, oh, damn near about second base. He's snapping you off, and that guy's a bulldog, man. I mean, you can't get him off the mound.
Some of the best shoes in the game too.
Oh, his shoe
Always.
game is on point,
His
man.
shoe game is top notch.
Yeah.
man. And speaking
Mason
of-
Farmer.
Trying to be like that when I grow up.
And speaking of pitchers in here, I see Kyle Sanders watching, man. He got pitcher of the year this year. I'm proud of that guy.
Oh shit.
Dude, Kyle Sanders is a stud, dude.
Dude, he's
Yeah, dude. The
Fucking
thing I love
great.
about Kyle, man, is like he puts in the work. Like you could
yes, he
tell,
does,
like
man.
he does the stuff on his own. He puts in the work. He's a damn good competitor, great human, and he hits it a mile. He can hit it down. He can do everything, but he's like willed himself to be, probably top 2 pitcher in the game. I mean, he was a pitcher of the year last year, right? So
Yeah.
it's really cool, and it's really easy to root for those guys like that, man. And Kyle's a great one. Mason Farmer's a good young up and coming dude.
Josh
his ball
Jones.
has
Yeah,
so
Josh,
much wiggle. Mason throws the ball up there and it wiggles so much. It just he's gonna be really good in the next 3-4 years. He's gonna be the man. So
Yeah, you also got, Josh Jones is another one that stays high energy on the mound as well.
Oh yeah, dude.
And then, from A now obviously going to Double A because they're moving up, but also you got Mitch from I-57.
Yeah,
He really
Carragher.
came into his own.
Yeah.
It seemed like this year he was killing the ball, and he got to the point where I-57 just couldn't take him off the mound. They were like, dude, you're pitching every game. Good luck. And
Yeah.
it worked out obviously very well for him. So
yeah,
he beat Resi, right? So
yeah, on the stadium. That not a lot of people can say that. But Jones, man, that guy's so underrated.
yeah, he is.
Like people don't give him enough credit. He is there's a few guys that you face, like to me, and some people are hard headed. They don't want to admit it. I'll admit it. Like when he's pitching, you're like, it adds a little level to it, because he's a damn good competitor and he's giving you a lot of jukes. He's keeping you off balance, and that's all it takes, man. I mean, you're talking a half, a quarter inch, and you miss the ball and you're out, right? So he's pretty good at getting that quarter inch,
And he's a lefty, so that
Yeah,
changes
yeah.
it too. Especially especially for you being a lefty. I mean, you're facing all these right-handers, and then you got Jones coming up there moving a lot, and then he's also left-handed, so that's gotta be a weird approach for you too.
Yeah, man, those guys, I'm no pitcher, man. I mean, I'll throw in league and that type of stuff, but when these gorillas are up there hitting like that, I don't want no part of that crap, But those guys, like, they know how to change speeds, and it's not necessarily like how good of a knuckleball you throw. It's about changing guys' speeds and eye levels. You can throw some four-seam biscuits if you mix in some change-ups in there. And I feel like Jones is one of those guys who knows how to really mix speeds on you, because he doesn't just pump the same knuckleball at you. He'll throw you some two-seamers, he'll throw you some four-seam biscuits, and he's juking about, he's testing that 5-second limit, and he's, what I mean? So he's done a really good job, man. I mean, shit, he carried those guys to You know what? They get runner-up in the Major World Series this year, Double-A
Yeah.
champs. So,
Yep.
you know, he's doing something right, man. And I saw him hit a couple balls over, you know, into that parking lot over there in right center. So, you know, he's a good one, man. And Travis Clark, I mean, that guy's a 750 hitter with stadium power.
Yeah.
And, you know, people don't get him enough credit on the bump, man. He knows how to get guys out. He's been doing it that long. So, and I always tell guys, like, that dude is like the Larry Bird of slow pitch softball. You know what I mean? Like, he's a competitor. He just makes it look easy. You know, he's flying around. So I'm very lucky that, you know, we get to face those guys, you know.
And another thing at that level, man, they're knuckleballs. They're knuckleballs. Like, those things move insane. And if they got any type of wind that's helping that thing, oh, good luck, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, the thing I noticed the most is I don't know that I think, I mean, exactly what Honey's saying, right? I think the conference was the biggest change going from because we played a couple conference events as a B team earlier in the year before kind of getting picked up from LSR, then followed by Sports Reach. But it's not even that the hitting necessarily is harder, but you've got to understand the strike zone because, like he's mentioned, the pitchers know what they're doing. So if you're somebody who's kind of been a free swinger against some of the pitchers who are throwing you pretty weak knuckleballs, four seamers, you can get away with chasing a little low, chasing high, outside, all that kind of stuff, and then the defenses aren't necessarily as good. But when you get to, like you said, facing some of these guys, if you take a swing on Travis's pitch or on Josh's pitch or any of these guys, Mooch's pitch, it's going to be very difficult to hit better than 500 type of thing. So the big one is understanding the strike zone. I actually watched Hitting with the Nation, Cole Campbell, the video he did with Kyle Pearson, and something me and Keith have started incorporating right out of BP is we do the setup where you take the two bats, basically put them on the side of the plate, put a bat in the back, and so you have like that conference strike zone. So that as we're up there in BP, we're not just swinging every pitch. We're taking pitches that they look like they're balls and making sure we're kind of familiarizing ourselves with strike zones because that's going to be the thing I think honestly that improves your game the most. I actually had a military coach about 3 years ago now who was like, Hendo, every time you're swinging at these stupid low pitches, you're hitting like 500. If you swing at a strike, you're hitting like 900. And sure enough, switch that approach up, switch to a different team this year, and I ended up hitting about just a hair under 900 on the military season this year type of thing. And I was like, oh man, it's crazy what happens when you swing at strikes. So yeah, it seems like because this ball's moving so slow and you can make contact, it's an easy game. But you can make your life 1,000 times easier if you just swing at strikes because now you can do whatever you want with the ball.
That's a big thing is pitch selection, man. It took me a while to learn that, you know, especially coming up, you know, new to the game. You know, I'm just thinking like I'm gonna swing at whatever pitch comes across. You know, I used to be that guy that every first pitch I was swinging no matter what. Like I'm just swinging, and it took me a minute to understand like there's balls, there's strikes. Like you gotta have an approach, man. You can't just go up there trying to hit a home run every time, man, especially down in the lower ranks when you only get 1, 2, if that. But it took me a while to learn that, man, and I've come to have a pretty good eye when I'm at the plate, man. So I'll take a walk before I'll swing the bat. So
yeah, I'm still figuring out the strike zone because my thing is just like if it's close and I can put barrel on it, I'm gonna try to. But you know, those walks do help a lot, especially you know when you miss hit one and it goes 310. You know, you scrape one over the fence and now you just wasted a home run for no reason. So you know, just learning the strike zone is definitely a big part of what I want to do this winter.
That's awesome, man. And there's such like, for me, myself included, there's still an anxiety about getting to 2 strikes, right? Against somebody that can really pitch. Because nobody wants to look like an asshole, right? Like nobody wants to strike out looking. Nobody wants to foul out. So there's that little bit of anxiety of, man, I don't want to get to 2 strikes. So you're like, you know, you're swinging at their pitch type of thing, you know, like you watch all the greats do it, man, like Flip Washington, man, and Big John, like those guys are some of the best at like, they're going to control it, right? They're going to make you throw their pitch. And I've seen all those guys strike out looking, and guess what? They could give 2 craps about that. They're like, yep, it wasn't my pitch. I ain't going to swing at it. They can call it all they want, but you know what? I'm going to wait for my pitch. And that's why they walk 60 times a year. Mitch Lindensky, same way. Like those guys on the zone, and they'll make you pitch to them, you know. And if they get 2 strikes, they're comfortable with that, you know. So I think if you can get to a spot where you're okay with hitting with 2 strikes, that really helps your approach a lot. And that's something that I have to work on big time, man, because baseball mentality, right? Like you yes, and I'm up there just because I see it. I feel like I can just hit anything hard, right? You can hit anything, but can you hit it where you want to hit it? You know, that's the difference.
That's true, man. I mean, pitch selection is key, man. And if you're facing a good pitcher, he's going to pitch to his defense. If they're all shaded left, he's going to keep that ball inside the entire at bat to make you hit to his defense. And if he makes a mistake and go opposite, I mean, you got to take advantage of that. But I mean, a lot of these pitchers are good nowadays, man.
Yeah. Guys that give me trouble too are some of the long guys, like Farron Miller, those guys who you step up in the box and they look like they're right on top of you. I don't like that. You know what I mean? I want to have some space to operate, And the thing about Farron is he's one of the best pitchers I've seen on the stadium because the wind's always blowing and he knows exactly how to line up those seams and make the ball do what he wants to do. So guys that are super long like that, I hate that feeling, man. Or they feel like you can shake their hand when you're sitting there hitting. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean that's the ball's gonna get on you quicker, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They got an extra foot and a half, 2 feet compared to the last guy you face. I mean that's gonna be a difference. So
yeah, man, absolutely. That's why you watch a lot of guys now. We started doing that a few years ago. If you can get looks before the game of your pitchers warming up, that makes a big difference. By the time you step in the box, you've already seen 10 pitches, right? So you get to see what's behind, you get to see the sight lines, you get to get your depth perception right as you're tracking that ball in. So that's kind of like a little thing that people look at and may what the hell are these guys doing? It's slow pitch. It's easy. But if you can get 10 at bats or see 10 knuckleballs, what it's doing in the wind, before you even step in the box, that could be that little difference between being a 680 hitter or being like a 650 or 750 hitter, right? This is the little edge you can get. And I'm big on that, man. I love that stuff, and I think everybody should do that. I mean, why not, right? You ain't doing anything anyways, you go see some pitches, see what the ball's doing and get a plan from there, Do I need shades? Do I not need shades? Where's the sun at? How, that little stuff plays a factor.
Yeah.
And cool. So just real quick, since we're talking about it anyways, and in the hitting piece, since Blake just asked in the chat, and we'll let Keith start with it because we pretty much left Keith here quiet for a minute. But he basically asked
little dog guy, right? I got
he says it seems like middle is acceptable, right? In quotation, acceptable, kind of at the higher levels. But then as you kind of get lower and lower in the levels, those middle shots are what end up starting your big old fights at a lot of tournaments. So what's kind of your thoughts on that, Keith, from what you've seen, and why do you think there's a big difference in hey, at the conference level, middle's middle, or at the upper levels, middle's middle, and then the lower and lower you get, it turns into kind of issues?
I feel like at tournaments in general, if you're paying to play, middle's part of the field. You got to field your position. But if it's your league night, if it's your intramurals on post or something like that, and you're hitting middle, that's kind of an asshole move. But then you got the guys who have no bat control. They accidentally go middle, and I feel like we can tell a difference,
Yeah.
Someone who's actually trying to hit middle versus someone who's swinging the bat hard and it just happened to go middle. But no, I feel like if you're playing Saturday, Sunday, you're paying to play, there's something on the line, whether it's T-shirts, rings, something like that. Hey, middle's part of the field. You signed the pitch, you got to field your spot.
Yeah.
That's also why I keep my ass in the outfield in the grass. So.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, if you're a guy, because I just started pitching last year, so. You gotta accept that role that, hey, that ball is gonna get hit back at me. And especially me as a pitcher, sometimes you can tell when that ball is about to come back at you. Especially if I'm throwing a curveball and I know that thing's floating and I step to the left, I gotta be prepared to catch that ball because it's gonna come. It's coming back. But I think just like what Keith said is a lot of your guys in the lower levels, some of them don't have that back control. So if you lay one out there, on the outside, they're just going to go with the pitch. They're not trying to hit you, but it's part of the game, man. That's how I see it. But you got the guys that okay, that was dirty. So
yeah, and I think so. There's another fault comment in the chat from Audrey and Travis Nelson in there, and I think this kind of is a piece of what I was going to mention. Anyways, is they talk about they said basically big difference how they act when they go through the middle, because I think this year we've seen plenty of videos. I think Mason got blown up 3 or 4 times. I think Bradley hit him. I forget all the people who I saw hit him, but Caparelli hit him. That's right. That was another big ones. But when at least for me, when I see those upper level conference guys, they hit middle, hit the pitcher, or even close to him. It's just they hit it, they run it out right, and it's over. Versus, I have seen you see some of the lower level stuff. You've seen it on some of the John King's videos too, right? He has a whole bunch of footage. Guys will blast middle, and if it hits the pitcher and they know they're gonna make it, they bat flip and they stare at the pitcher as they're running down the base. So I think the way you behave after you do it's also the big difference. So we talk about, yeah, it may be intentional. Like, there's plenty of times I'll shoot middle because it's wide open. At no point am I shooting middle to hit the pitcher. I'm shooting middle for the wide open gap. And if I happen to hit him, I'm running it out. I'm not showboating it. Honestly, I'm probably sitting there and I'm going to apologize. Obviously, I'm going to make sure he's okay, and that's the end of it. Versus you get guys that are shooting middle to hit the pitcher, and that's kind of the big difference. And I think that's what drives the issues you end up seeing is, or your guy will blow up middle. Maybe it's not even the runner who says anything, right? You blow up middle, and your whole team's like, "Oh, you got greased" or whatever, talking crap to this pitcher who just got hit by a 100-mile-per-hour pitch. And I'm like, dude, listen, if you want to talk crap at somebody hitting middle, go pitch. Like, I started pitching, like you talked about. I've been pitching now for 2 years as well. I welcome teams hitting middle if they want. As the pitcher, I feel like I can hit middle whenever I want anyways, because I'm going to have to defend it now too. So don't be the person who's out there playing left field all day and then is sitting there chirping at pitchers every time they're getting blown up, because you're sitting about as far away from home plate as you possibly can too. So
yeah, no, for sure, man. It's kind of ironic. Like, you see that at the lower levels, and they usually have the lower home run limits, right? So you figure it'd be more acceptable because, like, hey, man, we only got 2 home runs. Where else am I going to go with this ball, So you figure, that would be a little bit more acceptable. Quick story, like, one of the G'est things I've ever seen in my short softball life here is it's 2022. I was with Competitive Edge. We had the legend Jason Branch was our leadoff hitter. Young Mason Farmer was just starting to pitch, so he was still kind of figuring out the game. We're playing Premier, who was a really good team out of Ohio. And, man, they blew Mason up, dick in the dirt. I mean, he was blown up, right? And Mason got the ball and was, like, chirping back at their dugout and this and that. And we had hit middle earlier in the game on them, So Branch came up and said, hey, man, he told Mason, like, hey, don't relax, man. It's part of the game. Don't worry. But guess what? I'm leading off next inning. Don't worry. I'm leading off next inning. Sure enough, man, Branch leads off, and they throw one about this high, and he just buzzes on top of it. Ba-boom! Blows that pitcher's helmet up. Like, I was just like, nobody from either dugout was chirping. It was just part of the game, right? You protect your player, and you have a guy with that much back control like Branch does. He's going to send a message, right? Letting you know, hey, if you go through there, we have guys that can hit it hard too. So, you got to protect your guys sometimes, but the best hitters, like I tell people, especially if you're struggling, man, you got to go back up the middle. Not necessarily to hit a pitcher, but you give yourself the biggest margin for error if you're trying to hit in the middle and give yourself gaps there, So that middle's part of the game, And there's different times to send a message. There's different times. If you're up by 30, obviously you're not going to try to build someone back, but middle is definitely there, man. I mean, you got to use it, utilize it. If you're going to be a good hitter, you got to hit the middle sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I also think, like, in the lower levels, man, you get a lot of those teams that, play 4-man outfields. So your biggest opening in the entire field is middle, because a lot of times that pitcher's not going to fall straight back. He's going to have that one side he likes to go to, and that's where he's going to fall. So, and I think you see that a lot where a pitcher is falling to that hole and you just happen to hit that hole and they think you came back at them, but it's like, no, dude, I was just trying to hit a hole. You fell that way. So,
yeah,
I think that's a lot. Like, if you fall straight back and the ball comes right back at you, there might be a little bit you can kind of chat about, like, hey, man, what are you doing? But if you fall to the hole that I'm trying to hit to, I mean, I just see it as I wasn't trying to hit at you, man. You fell right to it. So,
yeah.
Let me stop right here for a second. Hendo, I think your camera froze on you.
Yeah, something happened. I'm working it right now, real quick.
If you have to, just close out and then I can bring you back in.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you guys can keep chatting. I'll get it.
So let's
man,
see.
Real quick, like, I'm talking about that 4-man outfield, man. Like, I was talking to somebody earlier, like a couple weeks ago, about this, but man, that's an underrated game. Like, that's an underrated move right there, right? Like, man, like, a lot of those Amish teams and stuff would utilize that 4-man outfield. Like, if you really think about it, like, you almost force teams to beat you with singles, right? Because you have your gaps covered, you have your corners there, so you have a big hole in the middle. Like, you're forcing guys to change your swings, and you're not giving them any doubles, right? So,
yeah.
In order to score, they either got to hit a home run or they got to hit 4 singles in a row almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, like,
it's super different too, because, like, you play a 5-man all year long, and then all of a sudden a team pulls out a 4-man, and you're just like, hey, my gap's gone. Like, now what do I do? And I mean, like you said, you got to either find a hole or hit it out.
Yeah, man. How many guys are used to doing that? You know, like you don't really think about that, but like guys who don't normally hit middle are trying to change their swings to hit middle, and you hit a lot of two hoppers back to the pitcher. You know, especially if you got a guy like Jones, Mason, some of those guys that can really field Kyle Center, like that can really field the middle. Like, you know, I mean, it kind of sucks for them because you're like, hey, dude, sorry, man, like you better get your smelling salts ready because ball's coming up the middle. So you better be ready for it. But at the same time, man, that's a big advantage. I feel like, man, it's a good way to throw some teams off. You know, I was on a C team, Mestizo, out of Midland, Texas, one of the best C teams in our area, and we were playing in the Space City Classic down there against Classic LNS Glass, who's a conference team. First couple innings, man, they rattled off about 18 or 19 runs on us, just killing us in the gaps, killing us. Our coach was like, hey, man, I don't know what else to do. Let's go 4-man. We ended up winning that game, man. They only scored like 4 or 5 runs after that because they were trying to change their swings and doing a lot of uncharacteristic shit, hitting a lot of weak ground balls, and you know we took the gaps away. You know, so
I mean, we had that happen to our team this year, man. We were playing a tournament. You only get 3 home runs, and then if you hit it out, it's an ending ender. So a team went to a 4-man outfield, man, and even though guys were trying to keep the ball down, hit the gaps, we just kept hitting it right to the outfielders, man. And you know, they had a good defense. They were smothering everything. You try to hit down and get up the middle, or try to find a hole in between short and third. But I mean, if a team knows how to play it, man, they're pretty good at it.
hell yeah, man, that's big time. You know, you throw a team off. If you're playing a team against like Resmondo or someone like that, you know, like they're going to be coming up the middle hard, but they're not used to having to do that all the time. You know what I mean? They might do it once or twice, but after a while, like they're gonna miss some balls, you know. So you know, I think that's a good move. You know, I know a lot of managers don't like to do it because they're like kind of looks like league night type stuff. I don't care, man. I'm trying to win the game. You know, we're pulling out all the stops here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and Joseph in my chat makes a good point. He's like, you give up the double plays, but you take away doubles and triples. So I mean that's a big key. So. You know, you'd be surprised. I mean, you don't see it a lot, and once you get to about that, you know, C and above level, you don't see 4-man outfields a lot. But you know, if a team is crushing you in the gaps, you might see it, man. And you'd be surprised if once they do it, how many teams struggle after that.
Yeah, man, hell yeah. You know, you push everybody. You put your 4-man out there. You push everybody towards the middle, right? So you kind of give up more lines, especially in a double play situation. You push everybody towards the middle in that second base area, and you have a pitcher like a Pinkham or somebody that can really give ground after the pitch. Man, there's not a lot of holes there because how many guys are good enough to consistently hit that line over and over and over? Like, I mean, we, you know, with RoofX, we're probably the best 300-foot team ever. Maybe we're like 27-1 on 300s, but like we weren't just like peppering lines every pitch. You know, and that's hard to do, man. Like. That's really hard to do. So, I mean, there's some strategy there, you know. And then next inning, guess what? You go back to a 5-man. Yeah. Think about something else. You know, you can switch it off every inning if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just real quick too, since we're talking about obviously hitting against all these different teams, I've seen it a couple times in the YouTube chat and also now in the Facebook chat. But there's been a couple questions about who like everyone plays for and things like that. So. It's up to you, honey, how far you want to go into it, but there's been somebody asking who you play for, obviously now, and then another one in there was, hey, who are y'all playing for next year, and then what brand and specs are you planning to swing next year as well? So I don't know if you want to go into or if you can talk about next year, but if you want to just go with at least who you played with last year or whatever you want to talk about. But
yeah, man, I mean, shoot, I'm not afraid to talk about anything, man. Like, played with RoofX last year. Badass experience, man. Played with them young Amish boys. It was like 3 or 4 of us, competitive edge. Went over there to RoofX. Play with them guys. We had a really good year. We didn't finish the year like we wanted to. You know, we were the number 1 ranked team for the majority of the year to the very end. And we just kind of fell up a little short, man. I feel like we kind of peaked maybe a little bit too early, you know, with some of that stuff. And the major's tough, man, because you have such a big gap between like the conference championship and the major and your last, you know, there's like a month gap there. So, like, you can build up a ton of momentum, and then it just kind of, like, you got to restart the major. That's why I feel like some AA teams and stuff like that, you chemistry, that moment. We won the AA, and we got second at the main series because we were hot, man, and like we got to play Worlds and keep that momentum building, you know. So I played with those guys last year. As of right now, I mean, I'm just enjoying the process. I got a lot of things working here. I'm excited about the future. But man, like I said, I'm really enjoying just kind of the process of it. There's some really good teams out there, and I'm excited to kind of see what next year holds. Yeah, hopefully here soon we'll get something concrete on there. And I want to win a major, man. That's the only thing I play for.
Yeah.
Once I win a major, man, you might never ever see me again. So that's like the only thing that when I started playing this game that I really want to do. And we've gotten second before. I've never hoisted that trophy. So if I want to get on a team that can really do that. Once that's over, man, I'm good. I love it. I love the game, but it's time to do something else and keep on keeping on. So I'll let you guys get on.
Real quick though, Ryan. Last piece of that one for those who might not know, what do you swing company wise, right? And then like what specs are you preferring from that company?
So I've been with Suncoast now for 2 years. I'm going to continue being with Suncoast for the next year, maybe even 2. Man, Rob Roop, Lee Trotter, them guys have been really awesome with me. I had my 13-inch enchilada bat come out a couple years ago. It's a bat where you really have to put a lot of swings on it, but it's very durable. You put a lot of swings on it and you kind of get a feel for it. But those first 100 swings probably aren't going to be the funnest, so you gotta really put the time in with it. So I was having an issue pulling the ball with my bat, that 13-inch enchilada. So I would try to pull the ball, and early in the season, I would hit a lot of one hoppers of first base and one hoppers of second base, and I was trying to figure out why, like, what the hell's going on, So that bat has a little bit – it's a 2-piece, so it has a little bit more flex on it. So about midway through the season, I switched up to a 1-piece 13-inch half-ounce end load. It's that red bat, Ruckus Max with I swing a 27. So once I switched to that 1-piece, it had a little bit less flex on it. So I had a really good feel of my pull side, trying to elevate the ball with that bat because it feels like a baseball bat. Like you don't have to baby it. You can swing the hell out of it, and it's not going to bend. So you know exactly where the barrel is at. So that's what I'm going to continue swinging going forward. I hope to have a honey cut out next year sometime there. But it will definitely be a 1-piece, and it will be a 27 ounce. I know that. So I love that 1-piece, man. That thing's a good bat. I wish I'd have moved to that a little bit earlier in my playing days.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and then for Keith, I know he's not signed with anybody, but what have you been kind of swinging? What do you? I know obviously more bats going to drop, but like right now, if the season was about to start, based on what you've got, what would you be swinging?
So me, I'm still swinging my my pure.
Oh, did he disappear? All right, well, we'll jump to Trey instead for now while he figures out what just happened.
Right now, I'm still swinging the Josh Riley from last year, the gray Mikan freak. I like
the Red X.
Yeah, I like short barrels. I'm a short barrel guy. Really starting to like these 1-pieces that are coming out. So I think I'm gonna give a couple 1-pieces a try. So with those, and then I got a 1-piece Streets, and then Anarchy Syndicate. So those still aren't broken yet, man. So I'm just still trying to get those settled and see how that. But right now, that's what I'm tweaking. My baby is the Mikan right now, so I'm a stick with that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because now that you both have brought up the 1-pieces, something I think has been kind of interesting since going to at least the 240s. It seems like the companies have figured out how to make these 2-pieces to give you kind of that, or the 1-pieces to give you almost that 2-piece forgiveness, which back in the day, like I feel like if you want to swing a 1-piece, you knew you were swinging a crazy stiff bat where you had to catch the sweet spot, or it just wasn't ideal for a lot of people. And now, as Honey mentioned, I've swung the same one he has, and me and Honey talked about it. He actually brought it out, I think, for the first time. We have a tournament up here in Ruidoso. It's up at like 9,000 feet, unlimited home runs. We're hitting BP, and I was like, Ryan, you're hitting the ball like 500 feet now versus, I mean, don't get me wrong, he was hitting it 400 with his bat, but he was absolutely mashing the ball that one piece, and from the outside looking in, it was a game changer for Honey for sure. Switching to that, but even with that being said, for myself, I switched bats a decent amount this year. I gained the one piece Monster Kinetic early in the year, as well as Brady's Louisville Slugger Genesis, and then I switched to the blue Jeremy Yates when that dropped. And then by the time the Demerini Culture dropped, I've pretty much been swinging the Demerini Culture since. If I get to places that are really, really hot, the balls get a little mushy, then I'll switch back to my Brady because I still think Louisville Slugger handles the kind of like those softer compression balls better than about anybody. So that's kind of sat in my bag. For military ball, we go to Augusta, Georgia. We go to Columbus, Georgia. BSC, we're obviously out there in Georgia. So a lot of places where it's just real hot and humid. And I found that performs well. But I'm not signed with anybody. I do that also intentionally. Because obviously my whole goal with the Average Youth Slow Pitch thing is to bring you guys unbiased reviews, honest opinions, things like that. So I didn't want to reach the point where a company's like, hey man, we'll sign you to swing with us, and now I've got to have viewers worry about, hey, are these reviews kind of compromised? He's saying this bat's good because he signed with so and so. So as of now, and really the plan going forward is definitely not signed with anybody. What I swing is usually just what I like, and I typically base it off bats that are going to hold compression because, like Ryan mentioned, we both like hitting BP, and I would rather have bats I can obviously BP and don't have to worry about like, oh, I have this bat at game, but I can't touch it in BP, so now I got to swing something completely different. And so that's my reasoning for going with, right now at least, the Demerini Culture and then the Slugger Brady. So
yeah, that's just like with me. I'm still at that point where, I'm still trying everything. So let me get Keith back in there so he can get his. Can you hear us, Keith?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah,
like, that El Paso internet.
Yeah, I'm being bullied right now.
Yeah, but for me, like I'm still swinging a bunch of stuff, man. And I've only swung the blue Suncoast in a cage, but I actually haven't gamed any Suncoasts. So, maybe I need to give them a shot too, because I've swung Juno, I've swung, like I said, the Mike and Anarchy, I swung Easton, but I haven't swung Easton since I swung the Team Resi. So I can't really say nothing because that's a 220 bat. So
yeah,
but
yeah. Those, speaking of Joe's Junos, since you brought it up, I'll say I've gotten to swing a few of the Junos recently. I don't know if there's many hotter bats out there on the market. The only complaint I have, and I've talked to some of the Juno guys about it, is compression can be an issue at times. But if you're somebody who doesn't care about compression, or you only game it, man, the newer Junos are filthy. We actually just swung a 13.5-inch barrel today, which I hate long barrels, and man, it was nuts what that thing was doing. So, but really nowadays, I think there's so many good bats out there. Find what's comfortable for you and swing it. I mean, like Ryan mentioned, he had his own bat, right? He swung it, realized he wasn't comfortable, and instead of just being like, I'm going to keep swinging it because it's mine, he ended up switching bats type of thing. And so that's the same thing with the rankings we do with average dudes. If you go to the averagedudeslowpitch.com, for a while we were doing like, oh, these are the top 5 bats, and then I realized that was a terrible plan because there's way more than 5 great bats. So now we just kind of go tier based, and it's all still opinion based, but we'll put rankings for, hey, all these are in our elite tier, followed by an excellent tier, above average, and then average. And so that helps us be able to tell people, here's a whole slew of bats that in our opinion you can pick, and as long as it meets kind of your swing, it's going to be great anyways. So that's the biggest thing I'd kind of keep in mind for anyone that's kind of listening to this and going, oh, okay, sweet, Ryan Honeycutt swings a one-piece Suncoast, that must be what I should swing. Sure, if you're a one-piece fan, you like the stiffer feel, you want end loaded, then sure, that's the way to go. Suncoast also makes a balanced version of that same bat. So if you're a balanced fan, you don't have to swing Honeycutt's or the end load version of Honeycutt swings. And so just kind of keep that stuff in mind. If you're a fast bat speed person, stronger person, then yeah, maybe those stiffer handles one pieces. If you're somebody with a little bit slower bat speed and you want that extra whip in the bat to really help kind of generate that power, look for something with a little more flex, and don't sit there with the Suncoast one piece, for instance, which is really stiff, or some of the like the Piers, that the most recent Piers, they're really, really good, but you are going to get a little stiffer handles on them. So just keep that in mind as well. You're not getting a ton of flex out of them.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like the backside, when you have a flexi bat, for me personally, like with that enchilada, I can go backside on command, man. It's just something about the way that barrel was lagging behind. I could really slice the ball to the backside pretty good, But, find what you like. And, if you have a $300 bat that you really like, that's a gamer that you're kind of worried about, go find you a $99 bat or $100 or $150 bat that's the same specs. Use that for BP, man. Use that. As long as you have the same feel, same ounce, a lot of times they're going to give you a little bit comparable, feel in BP, So You don't have to just spend all your money and use your gamer all the time for BP. There's other ways. Like Hendo said before, I like using, I also like using wood bat and BP because you got to be perfect. You got to be perfect. You get a ton of feedback if you're not. And then when you pick up your real bat, it feels like you got a rocket launcher, So I love that feeling of like going from a dead wood bat to like picking up your gamer and just launching balls. You're like, man, this is great,
Keith, what we can get to you because you got cut out, man. What are you swinging? What do you like?
Hopefully, I can finish it this time. But no, I'm still gaming a pure branch from 2022. So, 27 ounce short barrel end load. I went back and forth between that and the new Suncoast, the mega load from this year, the short barrel. So I've kind of went back and forth between those two. But short barrel, a lot of end load. That's kind of what I'm into.
Sweet, yeah. And then last part on bats, I'll move on just because this was asked us at some point. But what is kind of each of you guys? Do you have an all-time kind of favorite bat, whether it's a 220, 240, something you've swung that you still remember, and you're like, man, I wish I could still be swinging that, or I wish I could find another one? And I guess we'll start with Ryan there.
Mine's pretty boring, man. It's just the bat I'm swinging now. I love that bat, So, Hendo, I whipped it out in Redoso, and I was shifting through bats and stuff. Just because you swing the bat long enough, you kind of know what your swing should do and what you're doing. And I just wasn't getting the feel that I was looking for, So for me, this one piece, Suncoast Ruckus Max 13-inch half-ounce end load, like I'll take that. I'll put that against anybody. I swing it at the major this year, swing it at the Smoky this year. It's got great performance. They still got plenty of them. So for me, that's the best bet I've ever swung.
Yeah, and guys in the chat, man, y'all can chime in too. Give us what your favorite bat of all time was, even if it's the one you're swinging now or one in the past time. For me, it's the two bats. I got two bats behind me. One is the Matusix M22 Pure. I don't know why, but man, that bat just I couldn't miss with that bat. And also the orange and black Team Resi, same thing. And for me, that was one of the first bats that I grabbed besides the Red Canal, which is probably my all-time favorite. But I swung the Resi a lot more, and that bat right there behind me is a 28.5 ounce. So that's what I was swinging when I was coming into softball. I'm like, what do you mean that's as high as it goes? Like, I can't get a 30 ounce, So speaking of that, it took me some time to get used to the lighter bats, but those two behind me were probably my two favorites.
Yeah, that M22, that's one of the first pure bats I ever picked up, and it was gas.
Yeah, dude, insane.
But, yeah, for me, favorites would probably be the Mikan Hybrid, the blue one, and the Primo 12 Super Max that came out later that year. Both of those were absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'd say my softball playing was a little weird because I started when I came down here as military around the Z2000 days. And so that OG Z2000 from Louisville was probably my favorite 220. And then I honestly took, 5 years off softball and thought I was going to pretty much quit when I had my first kid. So from 15 till 2020, 2021 timeframe, I didn't play at all. So I know people like the yellow Freak highlighter and the black and green Freak 12 and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was OG Z2. And then honestly, even though I swing that culture, I still think just for all-around performance, Brady's Genesis from earlier this year is still one of my favorite bats as well, especially in the 240 circuit. But it's hard to put just a favorite there because there's so many good ones, and obviously I get to swing so many of the different bats now that every time I get done with the BP, he's been there. We get done with the BP session, and I look at him, and I'm like, maybe I need to keep this one. And then we get to the point where he's like, dude, if you keep all these, you have 400 bats. And I'm like, all right, that's a good point, so I have to get rid of some of them. So there's just... For me, I'm going to go with the Brady for 240 and then the OG Z2 for my 220. But there's a lot of great ones out there. So.
Yeah, I also heard in some past streams people talking about the Freak Hybrid with an alloy handle, that one, and then also the Easton Cato, the avocado.
That hybrid. That's the one I was talking about. That thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think those two bats were the same way because I think the Cato came out just before or right after the Team Resi. And that thing, man, shoot. That was one of those bats where if you bought it, you held on to it for a month and then tried to resell it for a big chunk of change.
And then if you held on to it for a year or two, you realize that 220's got banned and the value drops.
Yeah. I feel sorry for those guys, man. You still see them now on pages trying to sell 50 of these 220 bats still in a wrapper. And I'm like, oof.
Man, I remember that avocado back in like 2000, probably 19. We went to the Oklahoma City Major with Olmedo Heat, and I love that bat, man. I was swinging the hell out of that Easton, and I bought it off eBay, so there ain't no telling. I mean, I'm like, I bought it off eBay for like
28 thicker, 21
bucks.
on the
Man, this thing's awesome. I took it up there to get tested. It tested about 170. It's like, well, there's probably a reason that thing's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it was probably shaved to the gills, but it was a damn good bat, man. I tell you that much.
Dude, that was those bats back then, man. 10, 15 cuts on that thing, and it's just there goes the compression.
Some of them got crazy low, but yeah. So and then kind of follow up to that, since we're talking about favorites, and this is another question the chat can also chime in on, because I'd like to hear it from everybody. But we'll start with Trey on this one. But what's your favorite tournament you've either played in or you've gotten to watch, been a part of, whatever? Like, what if you have one? Or, I mean, if you only have one, great. If you have a couple, go for it. But like, yeah, what's your favorite tournament in softball?
So for me, like, I've been playing softball, I think 6 years now, and it's kind of been local, but I'm starting to try to branch out and go, travel more and stuff like that, man. But I didn't get to play this year, but I'm hoping to get to play next year. But man, when I went to BSC Worlds, dude, that's just a different scene, man. So I want to get the chance to actually play in Worlds next year. But between that and then there's a local tournament around here, man, that it's pretty good when it actually gets to play. You get some conference teams like Chick-fil-A and True back in the day would come down and play in it, but there's a local tournament that Mo runs around here called the Gauntlet, and that's probably one of my favorites, just because it's a local tournament at a nice complex. So those will probably be my two.
How about you, Keith?
For me, it's definitely gonna be Military Worlds. Every year, Military Worlds is always a blast. Just the environment, the competition. It's always a fun time, especially getting to see people that, like, you were stationed with when you first came in the Army and stuff like that. You haven't seen them for 5-6 years. You finally get to run into them again. It's always good. It's always a good time.
Honey?
It's hard to beat the Major World Series. I mean, that thing's like, it's like the pinnacle of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. You're on the big stage, nicest field, best players in the world, right? So, I mean, it's hard to beat that. Smokey is special. I think, this year we played Monster and on a Friday night game, which is kind of rare, right? So getting a chance to be a part of that and seeing how many people are there and just watching, you get an extra little bit of juice, something like that. Locally, man, for me, it's got to be the Halloween Howl down here in Clovis, New Mexico. It's a great atmosphere. It's right around Halloween. So you got people in costumes and stuff, and like the lower levels are just packed. I mean, we go out there on a Friday night and they just shoulder to shoulder with people. That's a really good tournament. The Corkies is awesome. I played the McQuades for ASA with Monster a couple years back, and that was like an Aerosmith concert. It was crazy, and I'm like, they had people everywhere. ASA doesn't have a lot of tournaments, but when they do it big. So I'll never forget those, man. I've been lucky enough to be a part of some of those and experience some of those. But I mean, like the McQuades, like for that home run derby, they had people like 10 deep all the way around the field just watching the home run derby. It was just like, it's just something crazy, And I've played college ball, played professional ball, but that's a different kind of nerve. You're like, holy crap, because in baseball, you can be 1 for 3 and feel pretty good about your day. 1 for 3 with the walk, you're like, pretty solid. I'm 333, all right. Softball, I mean, like, you're expected to get a hit and you're expected to do something special. And then as you move up and people start knowing you, the expectations get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So that puts a little bit on there. But, man, there's some badass tournaments. And I always tell these young guys coming up, man, some people are caught up in like, well, if I don't get my hotel paid for, or if I don't get travel, man, dude, coming up, I slept in my car in some of those tournaments just so I can get an opportunity to go play and experience that.
You gotta earn
at
that.
some point, all of us are not going to be able to play this game anymore. You want to pack in as many experiences as you can, into this short softball life that we have. So don't be afraid to go out there and get in your own pocket a little bit to experience some of these things, because it's stuff you'll never forget.
Yeah, Smokies is definitely one I want to go to. I think the Mojo's another one I want to go see, even though people say it's freezing cold. But I just heard it's a big tournament. And then I wouldn't mind going to check out that I don't know, Honeycutt, you might know, but what was that big Amish tournament that was towards the end of the season? That, man, I saw pictures of that, dude. I'm talking thousands of people at that place, man.
Yeah, it was the Paul Laney. I want to say it was called.
Yeah, Laney. I think it was the Paul Laney tournament, man.
Yeah, man. I had to work, with these crazy storms and stuff. I've just been busy, but I didn't get a chance to go. But man, everybody I talked to about that thing said it's just another layer of softball, because it's the Amish community, and those guys play from the time they're in diapers. I mean, that's just what they do. So it's got to be an additional, it's the big leagues for them, right? So that seems like it'd be a very cool experience. But yeah, man, it's the Paul Laney out there in either Ohio or Indiana, one of those two.
Yeah,
it was definitely up there.
Sorry, Christian was said the Trip Roth too. Yeah, I want to go play in that one. The Trip Roth.
Yes.
I want to go play in that one this year. I'm trying to find a team that's going or I can pick up with, because I really want to play in that one.
Yeah, we're actually going to take me and Matt Brady are on the same military team. We actually got our guys to commit, and we're going to take our military team to Trip Roth this year. So that'll be my first time out there.
If y'all need an outfitter, let me know. I just want to go get some crawfish, to be honest. But
all right, if your military team beats us in the first tournament, we'll pick you up. But
that's after Trip.
Well, then we'll see about next year, I guess. But yeah, bucket list wise, I mean, the Trip Roth has been there, and then we're actually going to go up to the PIF as well, which is a big old tournament up there in Canada. So we'll be at that one up in June, July. But as far as the ones I've played in, getting to go to the Smoky this year was for sure, like Honeycutt mentioned, it was a great experience. Obviously, major World Series, all that kind of stuff. But probably the most fun I had this year at a tournament was we actually got to go to Spain. They had their first ever USSSA World Series type tournament, so I got an invite for that. Playing out there was kind of crazy, and for me it was a little bit because I never really realized how many people watch the average dude slow pitch stuff. And our first game, I remember I hit a triple, I get on third, and this guy from, I believe it's the Dominican Republic, he's at third base, and he walks up to me, and he points to me, he's just like, "Average dude?" And I'm like, you watch the YouTube channel? He's like, "Yeah." And then the whole team afterwards wanted pictures and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool that the softball thing's kind of spreading, not just to kind of when I started it was gonna some small thing, let me go hit VP, but now it's spreading kind of worldwide." And then sure enough, there was a few other teams from quite a few places that were like, "Oh, we've seen your YouTube thing," and I'm like, "This is pretty cool." And so getting to go out there and meet a bunch of people was awesome. So, but there's so many good tournaments. We have Rio Doso tournament out here as well. Honeycutt's obviously super familiar, so is Keith. But it's unlimited home runs, bring your own ball, 9,000 feet elevation, and it's pretty cold, so you just go up there and kind of swing away. So that's always a fun one. A lot of guys are out there. But there's too many options kind of to throw out there. But for me, it's definitely getting to experience some of the conference ones that I've heard about for a while now, from obviously knowing Ryan and kind of those guys as well. So
yeah, you went off on that one, huh? In Spain, Hendo, I remember you're hitting some tanks out of that baseball field. I remember seeing the videos, and that looked like it was a pretty badass thing, man.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. That was the first time I got to meet John Kings, and I guess, I don't know, people say it's the John Kings effect. Apparently, before I knew he was recording and caught one of the home runs, and maybe that's why I hit the ball the way I did, but it worked out pretty well. So
yeah, man, shout out to John Kings, man. That dude's getting so many people looks and opportunities, man, myself included. He posts a video, and that's kind of how I got an opportunity to play some upper ball. We're playing some league out here, just a night hitting some balls, and I hit a ball really well, and he posted it on his page. And next thing you know, Carl from Monster hit me up like, "Hey man, want to bring you in for a tryout." So that dude's giving a ton of dudes some recognition and some stroke, man. So guys like that, that's hats off to him, man. That's badass.
Yeah, I say to him, I met him for the first time this year, when BSC was in Myrtle, and I didn't know who he was, man, because not many people, he's a face behind a camera, man. You don't, if you don't know him or somebody points him out, you won't know who he is if you walk by you. And that's John Kings. But the cool guy, man, and he's kind of the pioneer of when it comes to social media and softball.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
you got to give credit where credit's due, and You know, me or Hendo might not be here if there wasn't no John Kings or Rhino and people like that. So, got to give kudos to those guys. You know, they just open it up for us, and we're just keeping it going.
Yeah, and I guess between the two of you, there's two things I want to mention there, and I'll go with first to Ryan, because I know he likes to talk about this a lot. But you mentioned John Kings and kind of helping get people exposure. I know you're big on trying to help the dudes around you in your areas, things like that, help kind of get recognized, get the exposure, especially the guys who are putting in the work, all that kind of stuff. And so, you want to talk about that a little bit on like kind of what, at least I know you host a bunch of stuff up in your area, but how you kind of try to help guys get that exposure and how other guys can help their local kind of talent kind of be seen a little bit.
Yeah, man. So, when you start, everybody who gets to play, at the major level or conference level, whatever it is, like they've had somebody in their corner vouch for them, right? And try to help them along the way. And too many guys I see nowadays don't really pay that forward, and to me, like I get so much like joy watching guys like Emilio Lovato, Hando, Anthony Acevedo, guys from our area that like are getting a chance to play conference ball and putting our area on the map. Like it's not about like being the only guy from your area there, right? Because a lot of people want that recognition, that little stroke of like, hey, I'm the dude, whatever. Like you want to get the guys around you up, man. That's what it's all about. Seeing them progress through the game and go through the ranks, because nobody's bigger than this game, and everybody, like I said before, like Steve Whaley helped me a bunch get to opportunities. You got to pay it forward to the next generation, man. And we're doing a lot of stuff. And don't get me wrong, man. Like everybody wants to play conference ball, but you only want to put your neck out for guys that you trust are putting in the work, and they're going to take that opportunity seriously. Because if you think about it, like to play at the conference level, even a few tournaments, that might be close to or harder than playing in the major leagues, right? Like if you think about like the percentages of like all the people who play slow pitch softball, right? You only have maybe like 25 teams in the conference, something like that. It's a very, very like slim margin you have to play against the very best. So that's not something to take lightly, So if you have a kid that's working his ass off and you legitimately feel like he's ready, you want to try to put him on a team or something that you're hosting to try to get that guy a look. That's all you can do is give him an opportunity. Emilio Lovato is a prime example of that. I put a team in for the Whaley's Monster Bash in Houston, and all the big sponsors, all the big players are there watching. And this kid comes up and tears it up, and all the big situation he's ready for, and he does a really good job. And coaches were there to see him and give him an opportunity to keep on playing, and that's what it's all about, So, don't be afraid, man, it's your duty as a ball player to get the guys around you up, man, and get them opportunities. That's what it's all about. It's really easy to be selfish in this game, but man, get guys up. That's all I gotta say about that. So.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll tell you from knowing Ryan now for a couple years, he definitely acts on kind of what he preaches. I mean, he hosts a whole bunch of stuff up in Carlsbad. For New Mexico guys, he just recently put together an entire kind of like skills challenge tournament type thing, so we can get all of our New Mexico guys an opportunity to go out there and be seen by like our Challenge Cup director, stuff like that. Because something, I mean, I've noticed it. If you're not really from the West Coast, you may not really seen it, but a lot of the real big tournaments where he mentioned the Monster Bash, right? Like we're talking from us in here in New Mexico, and for anyone in the West Coast, Arizona, getting to Houston, I mean, that's a long ways away. And so it can be difficult based on where you're located too for exposure stuff. And we get it. It's expensive and whatnot. So when you have those opportunities to help guys out, get them kind of that exposure, guys you think are ready, it's definitely nice to have some of those guys in your corner, be willing to kind of take you out to those different tournaments and whatnot. So like Challenge Cup for us, again, crazy far from coming from New Mexico. Obviously, if you're coming from California, those kinds of places. But it's those kinds of tournaments, the exposure piece. And so that's where you kind of want to look at it. And as Ryan mentioned, it might take some sacrifices on, maybe I'm not going to stay in a 5-star hotel. I'm going to try to crash with a bunch of people and make this trip as cheap as possible. But get those experiences, get that exposure. I hate to say it, but like if you're just playing kind of your local stuff and recording your footage live and posting it, it's just not going to be enough depending on what you're trying to do. Now, obviously not everyone has to shoot for conference level, B, C, whatever. If you want to just play softball and have fun, there's obviously nothing wrong with that either. But kind of like what Ryan's talking about, we've been talking about the whole time, is it's more obviously focused for those guys who asked like, hey, what do I need to do to kind of get to the next level? What should I do to improve? All that kind of stuff. And so, for sure, there's plenty of selfish people kind of in the world. So let's leave that alone and try to make softball not the area where you have to worry about defending just yourself all the time, and be nice, be kind to people, and help them out when they just take a few seconds. You never know kind of what they're going through and whatnot, and just it doesn't take a lot to just answer a few questions and then kind of move on with your life. So I mean, I've never seen Ryan not stop and talk to someone unless he's literally running to another field at the at Vieira so he can get to his next game at that point. So just kind of keep that in mind.
And as a player, like, don't ask one of these guys to put in a good word for you if you know in your heart you're not doing everything you can to be at that level, right? Like, there's always people watching, and no matter if it's an E game, D game, C game, whatever, there's people watching and take note of how you carry yourself and how you do stuff on and off the field. You know, for me personally, like Zane Trammell was, he's been a stud from the Seminoles for a long time, but he was an umpire and he saw me playing like, hey man, who are you? Blah, 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 blah. You know, he got me a tryout with the Seminoles back in like 2019, and he was umpiring at the time. I had no idea. So you just never know who's watching. You know, do everything you can. And if you treat the game right, it'll treat you right. You know, are you getting up in the morning and running? Are you banging BP because it's a little too windy or a little too cold, and you'd rather sit at home and play Xbox or whatever it is? Treat the game right, and at the end of the day, it'll treat you right. I'm a firm believer in that, you know.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. And then, as I mentioned when you guys were kind of talking about it as well, going back to something Trey had mentioned, and I'll let Trey kind of get into this one for those that may not even know, but he mentioned kind of giving John King's credit for possibly kind of having the platform that myself and he has at these days. So kind of with that, Trey, for anyone who may not know, kind of what got you into deciding to kind of start the whole Trey Way Slays and what you do with slow pitch and U triple and all that kind of stuff.
Well, for me it was more of, I wanted to create an atmosphere where people can come in, see my stream, see that I'm streaming softball, and have a place to interact and talk amongst peers of the game, right? Because, you know, for me it was hard to sit there and watch an hour, 2 hours conference, 3 hours sometimes, to watch those long games by yourself and just sitting there. And, you know, honestly, you know, you would watch a couple innings and be like, all right, I'm gonna go do something else. Yep. You know, so I just wanted to create an environment where, you know, late at night you got the 8 p.m. games. That's the games I like to do. You know, maybe even a 6 p.m. game. People are home, they're chilling, maybe eating dinner, and you just put a stream up and you can have 100, 200 people in a stream enjoying the game, talking, chatting. And not only it can be softball, or it could be about our favorite movie. I mean, it could be anything. So that was my mindset about me creating this and just having fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and then kind of obviously from there jumping into kind of the average use side for people who may not know as well. And then I'll let Keith jump in on this one because obviously he's been a part of the channel a whole bunch. But same type of thing, like when the whole average use slow pitch piece started, it was right around the time Will Taylor from Slow Pitch Bat Bros was kind of transitioning to baseball. He was done with slow pitch. And I would be looking for reviews on certain bats and like, oh man, there's not a review on this one. And so I basically just decided I'm going to buy like 3 bats at a time. Me and a buddy are going to go out. We like to BP anyways. And we were just going to BP and try to make some videos. And if you go back and watch the early day videos, they're terrible. And I'll tell you that right now, like compared to what we figured out now, like if it was up to me, I would take them down. But hey, it shows me kind of where I started, right? So
same for me.
Yeah, we'd swing them. And then when I got done, I would try to like raffle them for something cheap-ish just to make some money back so I could afford to buy another one. And then eventually it just obviously kind of took off. But the goal from day one, and it still is the goal to this day, is for everything to be as unbiased as possible. Like we never go up there, like, and Keith can kind of talk to this here in a second as well, but we never show up to the field and go, hey, we've got a bat from this company, so make sure you make it look good, or you talk about it in a good way, or we got a bat from this company, we don't like that company, or whatever. Like if a bat performs well, we say it performs well. If it's not great, we'll let you know still what the pros are on it, and then we'll give some of the cons so that you can kind of make that decision yourself. And so that's going to be the goal forever and always. I still to this day try to respond to as many of the comments as possible, but if you're watching this and you've been somebody who's commented on YouTube and not got a reply, I'll tell you, go to any of the social medias or averageslowpitch.com and message me there. I promise I'll get back to you as well. But that's just been the goal. And it's, like I said, it's taken off. We're trying to obviously provide more content like we're doing here now with this kind of podcast format, just so we can help the average player who may not be familiar with, like, the guy who goes and buys a bat and breaks it because he's swinging in winter and doesn't understand why. Now maybe they'll understand and help them have that bat longer, break it in the proper way, find the bat that works for him, all that kind of stuff as well. But that's pretty much where that kind of came from. And people always ask me why it's called Average Dude Softball. They look at me and they're like, dude, you're not average. And what I try to explain to them is, it's not called Average Dude Softball, it's called Average Dudes. And Keith knows this as well. I have a chat with like 40 or 50 people. Every time we go hit, I put in there, this is when we're going to hit. Anyone's more than welcome to come out and hit with us. If you're somebody who's never swung a softball bat and you want to come hit, you can come hit. And I tell everybody, if you want to be on video, you can be on video. If you don't want to be on video, you just can hit BP with us. You don't have to be on video, right? So you don't have to come out there be embarrassed about however it is you swing. Our goal is to get guys to come out there and just kind of start to get to try more bats, enjoy the game, get better, and all that kind of stuff. And so that's still the case. I mean, if somebody reaches out to me like, hey man, I see you're going to a tournament like this week, I'm going to Temple. We're going to try to hit Friday before the tournament starts. If someone's out there and says like, hey, do you want to hit? We're going to invite anyone who's out there to come hit with us, type of thing. And so that's the whole idea behind it. And that's why it's called Average Dudes, is we're trying to cater to the average player out there who actually has to buy their bats, and not cater to the guys who are like, oh, I get my bats provided because I'm sponsored by this company or by this team. And so that's the goal. So you're not buying 10, 11, 12 bats at that price, or at the price point we know they are, just to be like, I don't like that one, I don't like that one, I don't like that one. So
yeah, no, and like for me, just to touch base is like, even like this, like a simple little podcast. You know, we got Honeycutt on here, and I haven't met Keith before, but seems like a great guy. And Honeycutt, I've only seen Honeycutt from behind the screen hitting bombs, and then he throws his bat 10 feet in the air and yells. So it's nice to get to know people beyond the game of softball too, and that's what these podcasts can bring, is you get insight on the game, more in-depth insight, and then you also get to meet the guys that you might be like, man, I'm not gonna go say what up to him, he might be mean or something like that. But that's what I like about the podcast.
Yeah, and then Keith, like I said, I'll let you like I said, you've been out there for the Average Dude stuff. I'll let you touch on it, on kind of anything you want to talk about it, and how you feel about the bat reviews, and hopefully you find it to be unbiased from my side, but just kind of your opinion on all that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, it really is unbiased. Like, I can't speak for Hendo because, I don't watch his pockets, but we don't get paid by these companies to say good things about these bats. They're half the time Hendo's buying them himself, or a company will send them to him to, try out and have us BP and everything like that. And I mean, like you said, we got players in the BP chat from D all the way up to AA major. So, I mean, it's really just regular people going out there swinging bat, and then if we have words to say about it, we tell Hendo, and then he decides whether he's going to put it on camera or not. But it's all 100% unbiased and everything. So, and it's obviously it's just fun. It's good to get out of the house, BP on a baseball field and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, obviously, at this point, I mean, we've been on here for a little over an hour and a half now. So I know it's a work night for a lot of people, whatever. So we're not going to keep your people here forever. But I'll give everyone kind of a chance if there's any kind of parting shots you want to talk about, anything like that. Starting with Honey, and then we'll kind of wrap this thing up so people, I mean, you guys also, but anyone watching this can go to bed and whatnot. And if anyone who's watching, by the way, if you missed, let's say, the beginning part of this, end part, whatever, I'm going to work on getting the footage kind of cut, and we're going to make kind of clips out of different topics. So if you want to go back and watch when Honeycutt's talking about how to the approach at the plate, or BP, they'll be shortened clips, so you don't have to kind of go through this entire thing as well. So just kind of something to keep in mind for that one. But Evan said, has anyone said anything negative about a bat in a review? Well, Evan, I will let you go back and watch all of our reviews, and you can or just go to averageslowpitch.com and go down and look at the rankings, and you can see all the bats that are rated very, very poorly. So, and then when you see the bat that's rated poorly, go watch the video and you'll see the negative things we say about it. How about that? But we'll let Evan do that, and then you can throw it on Softball Uncensored whenever you feel like it. But yeah, Ryan, anything kind of you want to just kind of touch on, or anything, topics we maybe didn't cover, or you want to closing thoughts before we kind of wrap this up?
No, man. I mean, shout out to y'all. You guys are both killing it, man. And, bringing more eyeballs to our sport, doing some honest reviews. I'd be hard pressed to find a better bat review than what Pendo puts out there, man. I mean, it's legit, so thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing awesome for our sport. Anything I can ever do to help y'all, just let me know. I've been very lucky enough to have some great sponsors guide me through this thing. West Texas Glove Man with Rene Verduzco, Suncoast that with Rob Rube, Lee Trotter, Mark Patterson has always been a dude in my corner. Mark Bernius. I've been lucky enough to play for the best sponsors I can in the game. In my opinion. So yeah, man. I mean, just keep playing hard, man. Enjoy every minute of this game because at some point it'll be taken away from you. So that's all I got.
We got before we let you go, we got a good question in the chat, and then it's from
We can use
Christian.
that as the final kind of question
it's,
for each person to answer.
So he says, "Is there someone who really helped y'all in the sport?" Yeah, we can start
yeah,
with you,
man.
Honeycutt.
I mean,
Absolutely.
ton of people, man. For me personally, Steve Whaley was really one of the guys who really put a word out for me as a player, and I'm just going to go into players because, sponsors, that's a different deal there. But
Yeah.
Whaley really put a word out for me and was in my corner. Zane Trammell really gave me an opportunity to come up and get a look. Those two guys started it off for me, from the very beginning. So, shout out to those guys for me personally.
How about you, Keith?
For me, probably one of the biggest people was TJ Foose, another military guy. So I met him in 2018 in Hawaii, and that was the first year I went to All Army, and this was the year after they went 9-0. So he was on that gold medal team. So obviously he wanted to keep the tradition going. So when I got picked for it, he was on my ass like, hey, you need to get these swings in, you need to be consistent, your glove needs to be good, and blah blah blah. So I mean, that whole probably 2-3 months between when I got picked for camp before when I actually went, we were out there night after night. Luckily Hawaii we had really great weather, so I mean we're out there night after night, and we're taking like our round of BP was probably about the size of a full roller bag full of balls. So, I mean we're just going cut after cut after cut. So I mean he was really on me. So I would definitely say he's one of the biggest people that helped me get to where I am.
Cool. How about you, Trey?
For me, I gotta give some ups to a couple guys, man. For me, I wouldn't know what travel softball or tournament softball was if it wasn't for a guy named Al Gainey and a guy named James White. So I was just playing, your normal Tuesday night league, at league softball, and he comes up to me and my brother at the time. He's like, "Hey man, y'all want to play this on the weekends?" I'm like, "What, league ball?" And he's like, "No, it's like travel. It's more competitive. We'll go to different cities and play. It's very competitive." I'm like, "Well, heck yeah, man, sign me up." So that's what got me in to really playing this type of softball where it's very competitive and everything like that. And then guys that just kind of helped me throughout the years, man. I got to give it up to guys like PKC and I'm drawing a blank here, man, because but just guys like that, man, that just helped me with my swing and just overall, when you go out to the softball field and stuff like that, like how you should act and stuff like that. But I mean, another one, Johnny Elkins is another guy. I used to go hit with those dudes. I would take the hour drive to Hampton just to go hit with them, man. So, so
Yeah, Johnny's a good dude.
Yeah, but that's probably for me, those guys right there.
Cool, yeah. And then to wrap it up for me, the three, I'll give credit to the fact that I even played softball. So when I got down here in New Mexico, I didn't even really know what softball was, having moved here military from Vegas. But buddy who, and actually all these people except one you've seen on the channel. So when the first, 30 videos, Chris Borman's one of my good buddies, helped me kind of start the channel. I was like, hey man, you want to come out here and hit or whatever. But him, Steve Myers, who's also out here, he played on the New Mexico Major Challenge Cup team last year. He played on I-57 Beachies, both of them. And then PK Kikua, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I probably butchered it. He's one of the lefties that comes out and hits with us as well. But those three were the reason I even played softball. Got me out there. They were like, hey, let's go BP and whatnot. And when I moved to New Mexico, I wasn't married or anything, so I had time and really got me kind of hooked on it. And then in recent years, my old military coach, Roberto Lugaro, he's the one who kind of really he was the first person that's really paid enough attention to the kind of the game and to what I was doing that he was like, hey man, if you try switching this or switching that, he was the one who told me like, hey, if you swing at pitches that are in this area, your batting average is going up a ton. Sure enough, the next year, kind of everything changed for me. And then really the last couple people in this last year, pretty much since Challenge Cup. Give a ton of credit to Honeycutt, who's in here. We've talked a bunch. There was a time where earlier in the year I was like, man, dude, my timing feels off. And he mentioned earlier in the chat, he was like, dude, when you go to the tournament for the game, he's like, stand in the box as ever the pitchers are warming up and see what happens. And sure enough, the very first tournament I did that at was the Smoky, and it went great at that point. And then Jason Magnum's been another really good one. We talk a whole bunch. Got a couple chances to hit with him, and was just kind of give a lot of good advice about as you start playing that upper level, how to kind of stay level-headed, make sure kind of you trust your approach and things like that. And there's plenty of other people I can name and go on forever, to be honest. I mean, Trey mentioned Johnny Elkins as well, another guy who's helped a bunch. So lots of names out there. It's obviously super appreciated from everybody. And then for me, the fact that everyone who supports Average Dude Slow Pitch, I mean, if you guys weren't supporting, people weren't watching, I probably wouldn't be doing it. And then they would go 90% of my BP, right? So, I mean, I get a chance to take, I don't know, 50,000 swings a year at this point for all these videos. So the support for the channel is awesome for sure. And it allows us to kind of keep doing this and whatnot. So it's much appreciated. But that's pretty much kind of it for me. And at that point, like I said, unless you guys have any final kind of parting shots, we can pretty much wrap this thing up, let people get out of here. I can go put my my kiddos to sleep and pack to leave for Dallas tomorrow, so me and Honey can go play in this North versus South.
You got one more person I got to shout out, and that's Felix Custodio. So he was the first person to pick me up for a military team. 2017, he took me to Military Worlds with him. I was actually teammates with Phil Matt for that tournament. But yeah, he's one of the first people I played military ball with, and it really helped me get comfortable playing military ball and got me confident enough to move to A. So he's definitely another one I want to shout out. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys bringing me on here tonight.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that's our kind of plan going forward, is getting some of these upper level guys like Ryan Honeycutt, who can kind of give his kind of point of view from someone who's went all the way from the bottom to the top. We got obviously Keith, who's kind of obviously went from the bottom. He's up here playing on a local B team now, Impact, which is actually ran by Anthony Acevedo from Straight Play. And then obviously getting kind of Trey on here, another influencer who's been around the game, knows a lot of guys. So just trying to get as many different kind of opinions, points of view. Now that after this tournament me and Ryan are going to, when I get back, I'm actually going to put some time into coming up with more of a schedule, getting some guys scheduled to be on here. And we're really going to try to get a bunch of different topics with conference coaches, more conference players, episodes about pitching, all sorts of different stuff to try to help you guys out. And then obviously if there's stuff you want us to talk about, reach out to me, whether it's on Facebook, any social medias, averageslowpitch.com, whatever it is. Let me know if there's topics you want us to talk about, and we'll throw them in there, and we'll for sure get them covered for you and try to help you out the best way we can.
Yeah,
so.
and guys on my side of things, y'all can hit me up as well. And me and Hendo have been going into this, and we're pretty pumped, and I think we can make this something that's good, especially being an off season, man. It'd be nice to have tutorials and stuff like that. Or even a point where if it's just me and Hendo, we can show videos and stuff and tips and tricks and what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be really good going forward if we can keep this going, especially for the off season. It gives people still a chance to be into the game but not be playing as much. So, and if y'all are cool with it, man, I would say we could just hold off for like 8 minutes and get some guys in here. Like one of my buddies, Jordan, he said, it's going to be his first year in conference. If you have any tips for him, Hendo or Honeycutt?
Ron, I'll let you go with that one first there, buddy.
First year in the conference. Basically, like I said, man, know who you are and know that you're getting that opportunity for a reason and know that you belong, right? So, you're going to get a little bit starstruck with some of these guys that you've seen on YouTube and things like that, but know that you're getting that opportunity and trust that the practices and the BPs that you've put in are going to come to fruition there, and do what you do. Don't overcomplicate things. At the end of the day, it's still slow pitch, right? But know that you belong, man, and don't bow down to anybody on the field. When you're in that box, you're the baddest dude on the planet. I don't care what your attributes are, or if you're 5'7" or you're 6'7". When you're in that box, you own the box, and you're the baddest dude on the planet. So how do you get to that point? By getting up early in the morning, taking BP, by getting that extra run in, by putting in all the work that everybody else is sleeping and you're up doing the extra stuff. That's how you gain that confidence. So come into this season, not just trying to belong, but coming to this season like, you know what, at the end of the year, I'm going to be at the top of the leaderboards. I'm going to be first team all conference. I'm going to do all those things. Aim big, so that's what I got for him.
Yeah, well said, man. Well said.
Yeah, just 100%. Just confidence is the biggest thing. Don't get in the box the first time you face Travis Clark and be like, oh my God, it's Travis Clark, I'm in trouble. Or if you go face Rufex, be like, oh man, if I hit this ball on the ground in the infield, I'm screwed because Rufex has a killer infield, like things like that, right? Get up there. Your swing doesn't change. We talked about a little bit earlier. Just I would spend as much time with your BP really getting super familiar with the strike zone so that you're only swinging at strikes. And once you do that, now that you're swinging at strikes, it's just softball again. Then you can just go back to trusting your swing. But if you find this, like again with these really good pitchers, if you're out there and you don't trust the strike zone and now you start chasing some pitches, that's where the game's going to get difficult. So just be sure to kind of really focus on the strike zone patience. If you're out there playing league or anything like that going forward, yeah, these guys might be throwing you cookies and whatnot, but be patient up there and get comfortable, even just in league or these local tournaments, maybe being on a 2-strike count or taking the close pitch and not worrying about it, because who cares if you strike out once in league or once in a local tournament and some dude locally makes fun of you. You know what you're prepping for, which is that kind of much bigger picture. So that's what I would really kind of aim for as well there.
And coming up too, like your first year or two, you're going to probably play a role, man. Like you got to put your ego aside in a lot of these situations and know that, like, hey, I might not be hitting 3-hole and starting every game. That's just not reality, man. They got accomplished guys that have been doing it for a long time, on the team more than likely, and you're gonna have to pay your dues a little bit. You might only get one at bat a game in a pinch hitting situation. Like, do everything you can to be prepared for that moment, and don't let your ego take you out of that situation, because the minute you get labeled as a bad teammate, you ain't gonna make it, man. That's the worst thing you can be. So if it's one at bat, make that one at bat the best one at bat you can have, and be mentally and physically prepared for that opportunity.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely.
And then here's a question for all of us. Some of the chats just wanting to ask questions. Joseph got like a 2-part one. He says, definitely want to hear your guys talk about your grip style and how you got to that point. And then same thing is your transition from baseball to softball, grip, swing, and adjustment.
So Keith, I'll let you go first, bud, because we haven't talked in a while. But I think you overlap, Keith.
I do. So I hang my bottom pinky off the bottom of the bat, and then I overlap my top two, pinky and ring finger. So I got into that honestly just trying different stuff in BP. Like, I mean, I've tried, the interlock grip, like the golf grip some people do. I've tried a normal straight grip like you do coming from baseball. I mean, the biggest thing is, try it in BP, right? Don't wait until a tournament, until, you've paid your $25, $40 or whatever to try something new. That's dumb. But when you're in BP, you're taking your 50, 60 cuts or whatever, switch it up. Try something new, see if it works for you. If you like it, cool. If not, cool. Try something else.
Yep. And then I think, Ryan, me and you are pretty similar because you don't overlap, right, Ryan? You just you drop one finger and then traditional pretty baseball.
Yeah, so I started off all baseball, obviously, and I drop a pinky off the knob, and and after that, I feel like the more fingers you have on the bat, the more control you have, a little bit less bat speed you have, the more you drop off, especially your top hand, the more whip you create, so your swing's super whippy, but for me, it's like, I've been on some teams where my role is to hit behind, like a Tyler Irvine, a guy that bangs it out, right? Like, so I know probably 70% of the time I'm going to hit, ain't going to be nobody on base. So I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of whip for some bat control. So whatever it is, like Keith was saying, that's a very good point. You may watch a video with, Kyle Pearson hitting and watch the way he grips the bat. Well, that dude has probably put in 1 million reps with that same grip, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be prepared, and you want to pick a good couple months there to really get comfortable with that grip before you just roll it out in a game, in my opinion. So, yeah, man, I've talked to a lot of guys, different folks, different strokes, but for me, I'm pretty baseball with a couple, pinky off. But that could change, man. You're always trying to improve, right? So whatever your game is, you want to angle more towards that.
Yeah, and I'm the same way kind of as Honey. I got I guess a pinky off, and then I put the knob on my ring finger, but no overlap. I tried some overlap in some of the BP and videos and stuff earlier in the year, and again, for me, it was almost too whippy. I felt like I lost a lot of back control, never really got comfortable with it. So I kind of went. Actually, I think I talked to Ryan about it afterwards, and we had this whole discussion, and so I just kind of stuck with what I've got. But also for me, because he talks about the extra whip, obviously I'm much taller than the average person too. So for me, I found that just being taller, I can generate a lot of that whip myself as well, and so the overlap's not completely necessary, and I think it's almost excessive for me as well. And being tall, I like to stand a little bit off the plate, which makes it easy to extend and go to kind of right center. And I feel like I lost that a lot with the overlap. I might have got a little more distance on some swings and maybe a better cut to like left field, but for the most part, I didn't find enough of a kind of an improvement for that to change. And so at this point, I've just really focused on locking into kind of more of the fitness side of things, getting loose so that I can rotate drive with my legs, and then leave the kind of the grip alone, and improve the swing itself. And for me, that's kind of worked as well. So
Yeah, and for me, like, I went through all the stages, man. Like, came in and I had a traditional grip coming from baseball. You know, I had the power, but didn't have that much of like the gap to gap control and stuff like that. So went from that, then I went to hanging a pinky, and then like Keith's grip, I have the pinky and the ring finger overlap. And then this past year I've just traditional. Now I'm pinky hanging and I'm a full overlap grip. Like, so just a hand on top. And I'm 5'10", so after hitting that with BP, it's become comfortable for me. So I like to generate that rip. I like to cut the ball, and so that's where I'm at now. So I do overlap.
cool. Yeah, and like everyone mentioned, I mean, feel free to try. I mean, if you're taking enough BP, whether it's off a tee, whatever it is, feel free to try a bunch of different things. There's tons of YouTube videos from different guys talking about grips and all that kind of stuff, and what they do to make it work. Figure out what works best for you. I mean, I'm gonna tell you though, if you haven't been doing the overlap and you switch to it, don't just sit there and take 50 swings one day and be like, I don't like it, right? Like, give it a chance. I think I went through probably 3 or 4 of our like days we're making videos, and I just was like, man, this isn't gonna work for me. Along with
you
kind of
gotta
fatigue work.
you gotta trust the process. Like, it's gonna take time to get used to it, but once you get used to it and you start to really cut that ball, and you're like, holy crap, like, I like this, and then it's gonna be hard to go back to a traditional grip. But like I said, if you got to where you are and you're swinging the bat and you're doing good, don't change it. Just stick with what you know. You know what I mean? Because just don't do it in a game or a tournament. Decide, I'm gonna try to overlap this tournament, because it's just gonna be bad.
Yep, absolutely.
Nice walk back to the dugout.
Yeah. But I think, unless you see something I'm missing, Trey, I think that was the last question, right?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody else got anything to say, that way we can let these guys get out of here. But keep on the lookout for more of these, man. We're gonna plan them out and get a lot of good guests and a lot of good intel for the game and stuff, man. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we want to bring you guys as many guests as we can of all different ones. So again, drop comments on if there's certain people, certain topics you want to see. Reach out on any of the social medias, whether it's Trey's, any of the average youth slow pitch, whatever it is. Obviously, you can reach out to Keith if that's who you talk to, Ryan, whoever it is. Do us a favor as well when this is over as well. Go to Treyway's Facebook and just share it for us too, because obviously if we can get the more and more viewers we can get, the more people that'll be willing to kind of come on here, especially some of the bigger names, things like that. And then going forward, we're going to dial this in a little bit more as well. So we're going to start bringing in some of the Instagram and TikTok audiences as well, and we'll have those chat rooms to kind of get it even more interactive. So biggest thing is, if there's topics you want to see, let us know. Changes, anything you want to make this better for you, that's what it's here for, is to make it for the viewer. We're just here, just kind of hanging out, getting a chance to talk softball, but ideally kind of bringing you into the conversation. So I want to thank, obviously, Ryan for coming on, taking time out of his day.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it, man.
Keith, same thing. And then Trey, obviously, for helping out with kind of getting this idea, bring it to fruition. Who would have known that getting an app to be able to stream to a bunch of stuff was as difficult as it is? So being able to have somebody on like Trey on your side has made this possible. And so we're going to be working on it and perfecting some of the interfaces and whatnot. But expect these the goal is going to be to get them weekly at some point. Right now, we're probably going to be looking at more like bi-weekly for now, just till we get it really dialed. But expect these to start kind of rolling in for you guys as well. So let us know what kind of questions you have, what things you want talked about, and then we'll make it happen.
Yeah, and just message us with, if there's certain players you want to see, or, certain guys, just ask and we'll reach out, man. You know, the worst thing they can do is say no, I'm not interested. But you know, it doesn't hurt to ask, man. So,
Anything you want to say, Ryan, before we wrap it up?
No, man, I'm good, man. Appreciate you guys having me on. You know, I'm always available, so reach out. You know, I might not always be great about responding fast, but I usually respond at some point. So, you know, thank you guys again, man. You guys are killing it. So, anytime you guys need anything from me, just reach out.
Sweet. Yep. And I'll see you in 2 days, Ryan. And then Keith, how about yourself, man? Anything you want to part
Same
with?
thing here. I'm all good, but I appreciate you guys having me on here tonight.
yeah, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Sure,
So again,
man.
thanks for tuning in, and kind of again, if you joined, I know we see some people talking about they just joined here. So just as a reminder, these once that he closes this out, these will still be available to go back and rewatch them. And then if you follow any of the Average Dude Slow Pitch social medias, you're going to see a bunch of different clips from this as I kind of turn them into their own specific topics. So if you want to go back and see like Ryan Honeycutt's approach to BP and at the plate, that's going to be its own kind of clip. Or if you want to see kind of Trey talking about how he started Trey Way Slays and all that kind of stuff, that'll be a clip. So make it easy for you guys to find this content. And then if you've got friends that end up asking you like, hey man, what should I do in BP? If you don't want to type out an entire message to them and explain it, you can go find that clip that we'll have of, again, Ryan and everyone talking about it and just share it as well. So trying to, again, make your life a little bit easier for that piece of it, and really kind of spread that content to help everyone out. So
Yeah, and in any videos he puts out there, I'll repost to my page as well. So we can, that way you have multiple means of trying to find a clip or video that you feel you might need, you know, to rewatch. So
yep. So sweet. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks guys for joining us on here, and we'll see you guys next time.
all right, appreciate it, guys. All right, chat, we'll see y'all, man. Appreciate it.
Later, boys.
Right up.